Yeah. Hello, everyone, and good morning. This is the Committee of Adjustment for Toronto and East York. It's our October 16th meeting, so we welcome you here. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act as amended, this meeting of Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is now called to order. What is it the committee does? Well, essentially, we can approve variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property. We can also give permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses. And we can also grant a consent to sever property to create new lots. So we have a division power that we have there under the Planning Act. But before we go further, we want to acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. All right, I'm going to get into some introductory remarks. They're somewhat lengthy, but they're important, and you'll understand whether we're hearing people in person or virtually. So committee adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants are going to make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and they have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will be automatically muted on entry. When your item is called, you'll be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called on to speak. Those who are participating by video appearance, and they'll be temporarily upgraded to panelist. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You'll only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you'll be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist control during a video appearance. If you counter that, then the host will remove you from the panelist. All right, decisions of the committee. So people who are in attendance today who want to have a copy of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment must fill out a decision request card. And those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. What happens if you disagree with a decision of committee today? Should you disagree with a decision, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed the rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and specified persons as they are defined in the Planning Act are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. All right, a few more words about the procedure today. I'm going to call each item in the order listed on the agenda. In terms of submissions, where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I'll comment when you're reaching that 5-minute limit. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members can't accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, would you please clearly state your name and address? Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters that are outlined in the application before us. The applicant or the agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee of the application. Please remember that committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. Committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those who are entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. After the applicant, then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we first call on speakers here in the room, in the hearing room, and then those participating through WebEx. When all speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. That'll mark the end of discussion. The application will be then taken into this committee for a decision. All right, in terms of administrative matters, Madam Secretary Treasurer, are there any minutes to be confirmed at this?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and panel members. Yes, the October 2nd, 2024 minutes are ready for adoption.
All right, members, could I have a motion, please, then, with respect to adoption of that October meeting? Yes, Peter. All right. For Mr. Reid, and seconded by Mr. Gauguin. All in favor, then? Thank you. Those matters are adopted. Okay. All right, and again, before proceeding further, members and staff have to ask if there are any declarations of interest, any conflict of interest on matters in the morning agenda. Is there anything? I'm looking at it. All right. See none? Okay, that's fine. It'll allow us to proceed. Okay. Madam Secretary Treasurer, are there any matters for which requests have been received for deferrals today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, before we get to deferrals, I'd like to ask the members to move a motion to close a file. So the file is 257 Chisholm Avenue, file number A0602/24TEY. This was previously deferred. The property owners no longer want to pursue the application. So I just need a motion to withdraw, close the file. No refund will be issued for this file.
Members, yes, Mr. Reid? Yeah.
I'll move a motion to close this file.
All right, maybe seconded, please. But all right, other Reid. So thank you. All right, all in favor? Okay. Thanks, members. That's passed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, then we do have one request for deferral. Item number 1, 350 Quebec Avenue, file number A0301/24TEY. So we can start with that item.
Thank you. All right, is the owner or applicant available, please, with respect to item number 1? And again, the address is 350 Quebec Avenue.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you can just read the purpose of application and the materials that have been submitted, and then we do have the applicant online, and we do have 3 registered speakers.
All right. All right, with respect to then of this first application, 350 Quebec Avenue, here's the purpose. To alter the existing one-story ancillary building, a detached garage, by constructing a complete second-story addition above. This ancillary building will be converted into one garden suite. The existing 3-story semi-detached dwelling will be maintained and unaltered. There will be a total of 2 residential dwelling units on this lot, one within the main dwelling and one within the ancillary building. Is what committee has before it in terms of filings and correspondence. We have a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have 7 photographs of the subject property. We have a deferral request from Paul Dacuna as agent. In terms of interests or concerns, there's correspondence from Dr. Ivan Brock and Miss Ellie Lathrop at 352 Quebec Avenue. And then persons in opposition, we have correspondence from a number of people on Quebec Avenue, on Annette Street. Yes, those two streets, we appear to have a total of 6 persons who are opposed. And yes, thank you. So that's
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll unmute the agent at this time.
Hi there, good morning. Mr. Dacuna there,
Yes.
please.
Yes, this is Paul Dacuna, architect and agent for this file.
Thank you. Could you speak up a little louder? Thank you.
This is Paul Dacuna. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, that's better.
This is Paul Dacuna, architect and agent for this file at 350 Quebec Avenue.
Yes, thank you very much. And committees has been advised that you're seeking a deferral of this application. Can you tell us why and what's happening there?
On October the 1st, Mr. Chair, we received an email from Bruna Negro at who is the planner for this file, and suggesting that we defer. There is going to be some new regulations that are coming into play, and this will also give us an opportunity to review that in light of those regulations and any other consultation that may be required.
All right. Thank you very much, members. Any questions for Mr. Dahuna? No. All right. All right, sir, we'll just ask you then to stand by. There are additional speakers that we can now hear from.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. We do have 2 individuals here in person, so we'll ask them to come up to the podium one by one and just speak to the merits of whether or not they support the deferral request.
Good morning, Committee of Adjustment.
Hi, good morning. Yes, could you give us your name and property address, please?
Yes, I'm Jette Borg, and I live at 249 Annette Street. It is one of the houses at the right-of-way, so it's not on Quebec Street, but on Annette Street, which is directly facing the site of the proposed construction. I'm opposed to the deferral, and I'm also objecting to the construction of the new building. So in 2016, or before...
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can't hear the merits of the application. What's on the floor of hearing is the deferral request.
Okay.
Right? So you oppose the deferral request?
Opposing the deferral.
If you can tell us why?
Because the objections we have are so severe, and the severity of the variances are so strong that it should not be permitted, and it's affecting a lot of the area. So
Okay, thank you.
changes may happen that this will not be considered, so strongly opposing
Thank you very
both.
much, then. Okay. All right, is a second speaker to the...
Yes, the second speaker can come up to the podium.
Good morning, members of committee. My name is Parisa Memori. I'm from 251 Annette Street. Email address memori.p@gmail.com. The reason that I am opposing the deferral request is because this project has started in 2022 without notifying the neighbors and those who are going to be severely affected. The project has been on and off numerous times, and the only way for us to know what is happening is to go to the website of the city to see what the project status is. The postponing of it is severely going to affect us because we have spent a lot of time reviewing the incomplete documents that they have submitted, including the drawings of the architect. We still do not know exactly what's happening there, and mentally, physically, we are exhausted. we want this to be finished. And deferring it, we do not see any reason for deferring it, except the fact that with the new provincial bylaws, they will get to do whatever they want to do.
All right, thank you. Members, any questions for the speaker? No. No, okay.
Through you,
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair, we will unmute Ivan Brock.
Good morning, Mr. Brock, you there?
Ivan Brock. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you, we can, thanks.
Okay, no problem. Hello, I'm Ivan Brock from 352 Quebec Avenue. Regarding the deferral request, I have no strong opinion. I do feel we should follow process, and it is within the applicant's rights to defer the request. I understand the concerns of my neighbors and what we've been going through with some of the renovations that have occurred in the past. But I'm a strong believer in process, and I feel we should follow the process.
All right, thanks very much for those submissions. That's great, thank you. So I think we'll return back to Mr. Dacuna in terms of response.
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
yes. Mr. Chair, this is Paul Dacuna.
Yeah.
I'd like to just further request that we continue with the deferral. I thank Mr. Brock's commentary about process. I also want to just very quickly address speaker number 2. There is a permit for an existing garage, so I'm unaware what work speaker number 2 is referring to. There's been no work related to this particular application. There was work related to the original garage, of which we'll be adding on to, and creating the garden suite. So I believe that those comments should be dismissed, and they're inflammatory, and I think meant to be inflammatory. So they're I don't think they're relevant. So we would just simply ask for a deferral, so we can actually go through the proper further consultation with staff and any neighbors, and that's all I can say, Mr. Chair.
Well, just one question to you. Remarks were referring to some possible regulations. I presume provincial regulations. I'm not familiar with those. Do you know what they relate to?
Yeah, and quite frankly, Mr. Chair, I haven't had an opportunity to review them as of yet and their potential impact.
Fair enough.
But we were given this advice by the City of Toronto planning staff, and the email says, reviewing your garden suite, it is my professional opinion that you defer the application, and we took that under advisement and agreed to do so, Mr. Chair.
All right, one question, just from one of our members.
Just
Read.
just for information, in terms of the photos that were submitted, it looks like there is some kind of room or studio above the garage at the moment. Is that a recent build?
No, sir. That the garage is a garage. There's that's all that's there. There's not anything built over that garage, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the garage. If you see what you see there, sir, is at grade of the right of way, which is the access to the garage, which is on the side. It is higher because this property actually slopes into the ground, and then the garage is actually at the higher level. So those stairs going up to that door, that's the level of the garage.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And that was under a previous permit, sir.
Yes, one more question. Yes, go ahead.
If you are granted this deferral, would you commit to initiating and engaging in discussions with the neighbors and further consultation with them to give them further clarity on your proposal before it comes back to committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair, absolutely. In fact, the neighbors on the net, I don't believe were consulted, but there have been other neighbors consulted, including Mr. Brock, in fact, on the street. And We have some letters of support. We just haven't submitted those yet. We're going to wait until the next. But yes, we'll have further consultation, and we'll reach out to these particular neighbors. Obviously, they have concerns, and I think it's important, and I'm sure the owners believe it's important that their thoughts at least be heard.
Right, thank you. Members, then, we have a deferral request before us, and you've heard the submissions. Members, do you wish to put forward a motion with respect to this request? All right, Mr. Gauguin? Yeah.
A motion that we grant this deferral based upon on additional information from the ministry and ongoing discussions with the city staff, as well as the commitment to engage in the neighbors in a further update and consultation prior to returning to committee.
Thank you. A seconder for that motion? Yes. Mr. Reid? All right. All in favor, then? All right. The matter is deferred, but subject to those matters that were discussed. As mentioned, too, when decisions come out, copies of it and the appeal rights are set out in there as well. So thank you. All right, Madam Secretary Treasurer, then I think then we can proceed to item 3, 17.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we need to deal with item number 2. So we're just going to go in order
I thought
with
we
the
had closed
applications.
that, file, Madam.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that was 257 Chisholm
I'm sorry.
Avenue.
Right.
I believe the applicant may be requesting to close this file, but we'll have to hear from the applicant.
Sure. All right, then. Item 2, 308 Chisholm Avenue. I'll mention what the city has in terms of on file and on communications. Here's its purpose: to alter the existing one-story detached dwelling by constructing front and rear one-story additions, a complete second-story addition, cantilevered at the front and rear, a rear ground floor deck, a rear second-story balcony, a front porch, and front and rear basement walkouts leading to a new basement suite. There'll be a total of 2 residential dwelling units on this lot. This is what committee has before us and its communications. We have a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations. We have a cover letter from Peter Savadra as agent. We have 10 photographs of the site. We have a tree inventory with 5 photographs of trees prepared by a private tree consultant. We have presentation materials from Mr. Savadra as agent. And in support, we have 4 form letters in support signed by the owners or occupants of 311, 312, 313 Chisholm Avenue, and 42 Cambrai Avenue, that were all received October 15th of this year. All right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we will unmute the agent. No registered speakers for this item.
Okay, thank you. Good to know.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Saavedra, and I represent ARC Forum as my architectural practice. Okay. I am representing this morning Nathal Wilner and Stacy Kronick, who live at 308 Chisholm Home, who want to basically expand their property to accommodate a growing family of 4, 2 small children. They currently live in the house that's barely 700 square feet, about 775 or about 72 square meters. And this application in front of you is for that purpose.
Thank you very much. And what requests are you making to committee this morning?
Well, the requests we're making to the committee are to accommodate the variances we've requested. I did submit a presentation that summarizes all the variances. Many of the variances that are there today are obviously not met because this is a house from 99 years ago when it was constructed in 1925. I'm wondering if there's a presentation that I submitted that basically summarizes this whole application. If that could be pulled up, that would be terrific. As this is the drawings we submitted. The other one's a short submission presentation. Yes, thank you very much. Can we go to the next slide, please? This is what I'm going to cover very quickly. Next, please.
So I know there are 6 variances that are requested. Yes, okay.
Yes, there are. There are 6 variances that are requested in regards to height, length of building, and some setbacks that cannot be accommodated because of the existing walls that will remain. What you see in front of you are the changing neighborhood conditions. As you can see, we can go to the next slide, please. Also represents what's happening to the neighborhood. These are 16 houses that have received variances over the last few years, and thus they've expanded their properties accordingly, and we're basically doing the same thing in the same vein and same spirit of the neighborhood as it's expanding. Next, please. These are the immediate houses that have received variances approval by your committee, and we believe that our application at 308 Chisholm Avenue is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood in the same spirit, and it's adding and rebuilding, which is something that I know the City of Toronto is looking for. Next, please. These are the variances we're requesting. So you can see the allowed, the existing, and the proposed. Many of the existing already do not meet some of the criteria, such as the side yard setbacks in the front or the side, and the density itself today obviously is not consistent with the growing city of Toronto. And so what we're looking for is for obviously enlarged coverage from 45.5% today with the covered porch to 49.8%, and some reductions in some of the setbacks at the front yard, although it's the front yard will be roughly about halfway between the 2 adjacent properties, which is a requirement. The length of the building will be approximately 1.3 meters longer than the allowed, and the depth of the building will be about 1.97 meters longer than allowed at 19 meters. And the FSI is going from today, the house of 0.45, we're doubling it obviously by adding a second floor. The allowed is 0.75. So this summarizes the variances. Next, please. This is the context plan that shows the location of the property in many of its neighborhoods. The house on the left represents the front and the rear yard, the rear views, I should say, and some of the very narrow, just now the picture on the bottom right-hand corner of the pictures, there's an easement there that allows both properties to access their rear yards. Next, please. This is a diagram that illustrates what we're proposing in terms of the variances. The red line represents the existing house. The red line, dotted line, that is the covered porch that exists there today. The gray on the left is the proposed expansion on the ground floor, and the light gray on the right is the expansion of the front wall. The light gray, encompassed by the dotted existing covered porch, represents the cantilever on the second floor. This is what we're seeking. The north and the south yards are remaining the same. Next, please. This is basically an illustration of the cross-section of the house, and we're showing the cantilever on the second floor by the bedroom. The diagrams on the left represents basically the existing house, superimposed the red line that is onto the massing of the proposed house. Next, please. This represents the program of the house. Essentially, there's an interconnected set of stairs that basically accommodates the grandparents' suite in the basement where the parents will live, and then the growing family of 2 children, 2 young children, and the landscape architect actually who lives at this house, who actually did those drawings earlier, will live on the upper 2 floors. Next, please. This is the composition of the massing of the proposed house and the views that you would have from the front on the left and the right. You'll see the covered porch, the little glass porch that is to basically accommodate the older grandparents to easily access in inclement weather. Next, please. This is the existing streetscape, and you can see to the south the house is already about 2 stories, and there's a number of houses to the right, to the north, that are also much larger as well. Next. This is the proposed house in the condition that we hope we find once it's constructed, with your approval, of course. And next, please. And we believe that our application is consistent and is minor in this request is in minor variances, and it meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and is consistent with and it satisfies basically the 4 principles that you see there.
Thanks. I'll just ask you to sum up then.
So in summary, we're seeking the variances to accommodate this growing family and to accommodate a house expansion, vertical expansion, consisting with that of the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. I've just got one question for you. You mentioned a number of comparable properties, and I see that you're seeking the floor space index is going up to 1.41 times the area of the lot here. How does that FSI sort of compare to some of the comparables that you looked at?
Yeah, so the 1.41 is actually inclusive of the basement. So I just want to be clear, that's inclusive of the basement. We did submit that as we're trying to work with the finished grade and the underside of the first floor. It has to be 1.8 meters from the finished grade to be considered basically a habitable space and not a basement. At this point, it is a basement, and hence the density, the FSI is actually 0.95 without the basement. It's 1.41 with the basement. Should we raise the ground floor to accommodate a higher ceiling that the clients are thinking of considering?
All right, thank you for that. Members, yes, Natalie, please. There's some questions coming, sir. Yeah.
So
Please.
I have a couple of questions. So I understand that the variance number 1 is basically due to the second portion, a portion of the second floor, the cantilevered portion?
Yes, so obviously in this particular case, we're expanding, we're already increasing the density by adding a floor. So that's a variance right there. The cantilever to the right on this building section that you can see is basically to create a semi-covered area over the front door to protect the landing of the little porch there. That's really the extent of it. And it allows basically for the right size floor space to accommodate the number of bedrooms on the third floor, on the second level. Otherwise, you just couldn't accommodate it. It would be too small.
Okay, and the side, again, variance number 2, side setback, I understand it's an existing condition, correct?
Yeah, the two existing conditions, one on the north and one on the south, we cannot meet them, obviously, because we're planning to keep those walls where they are. We want to try to take advantage of the existing windows on the easement to the south side. So we want to keep that wall for that purpose and with those existing windows in that location.
Last question from me. Did you consult with neighbors? We don't see any letters of support or opposition, but
Actually, the chairman did announce 4 letters of support at 311, 312, and 313, and one in Cranberry just around. Those were submitted to the committee the other day.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions for this speaker? No, I'm seeing none. Okay, sir, thank you very much. There are, as I understand it, no further speakers, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, on this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
That's correct, all right, okay. All right, members, I think we can take this into ourselves for discussion and/or motion. Anyone want to? Yes, Mr. Reid, want to kick off? Great.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to bring a motion. I think this is a good proposal. There's a very modest increase to the size of the footprint of the house, and then the second floor, I think has very minimal impacts on the neighbors. And the one question that did come up that you raised was the FSI does look very large, but I think the applicant did a good job explaining that includes the basement. The materials were well presented and I think showed that the impacts of the variances are minor. So I move approval without condition.
Is there a seconder for that approval? Yes, Ms. Anelli and Ms. Volpert. All in favor then? All right, appears to be unanimous, Madam Chair. The variances are approved, sir. Okay. All right, just moving on to item 3 on our agenda, staying with the agenda. 17 Lanark Avenue. All right, I'm just going to read out the purpose, and then we'll see who we have here. Here's the purpose for 17 Lanark Ave. It's to convert the existing one-story detached dwelling to a duplex by constructing a complete second-story addition, cantilevered on the north and west sides, a rear two-story addition, an integral garage, a front porch, a rear first-story deck with stairs, a rear basement walkout with a patio, and an oversized driveway. This dwelling will have a total of 2 residential dwelling units. So it's essentially, it's a duplex. We have the following material: plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 6 photographs of the subject property. We have a copy of a tree protection plan prepared by a private sector, we have revised plans of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. These revisions were received October 11th, this month. And then we have email correspondence from Mehdi Hosseini as agent. We have the following comments or reports: a staff report from supervisor, really, of urban forestry, also from the manager of development planning and review. Sorry, this comes from transportation services. I should have said transportation services. And finally, an advisory staff report from Metrolinx.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online. No registered speakers for this item. At this time, we'll unmute the agent.
Please, thank you.
My name is Mehdi Hosseini. I'm the designer and agent on behalf of the owner for 17 LANARK Avenue. And my address is 201 Steeles Avenue East, Toronto, Ontario.
All right, thank you. And so, sir, yes, we have your application before us. I read out its purposes, and I see that there are a total of 12 variances, minor variances, that are being sought for your project. Okay, why don't you tell us? I'm sorry. Any changes? All right, sorry, just asking. I understand there may have been some revisions, sir, so maybe we need to go through that. So 12 variances. Sir, as a start then, do you want to bring us to any of the particular variances that are before us and explain why they're being changed or revised?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Through you, there are some changes to the variances that we have requested before.
Okay.
As a result, variance number 6, number 10, and number 11 will be removed. And variance number, I see it here, right? Number 12, it will be changed to 70% instead of 60% for the soft landscaping requirement. So those are the changes that we are making to the application. And the rest of the variances that we have, I just want to give you guys a quick explanation about them. So we are adding an addition to the existing one-story house on the main floor, basement area, and also on the second floor. And as a result of those modifications, we have some variances coming up. And most of these variances that we have are related to the existing condition of the property. So variance number 1, 2, 3, 7, and 9 are all kind of similar, and they're all related to the existing setbacks that we have to the west and east side of the house. And also, we made the revision to the drawing, which being submitted on October 11th. Based on that, the driveway has been, the width of the driveway has been reduced to 2.7 meters as per the comment from the transportation. And as a result, we increased the landscaping area and also the self-landscaping area as well. In regards to the deck in the back, I know that the notice created by the zoning examiner marked it as 3.19 meter from the rear main wall projection, which is right. And he actually put 3.73 meters height for that deck, which is not. The actual height is 2.54 meter from the ground, and it's 3.73 meters from the slab of the basement. So that's why the number is too high. But if there is any questions from the members of the committee, I would be happy to answer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, for item or variance number 12, 70% is what's being proposed. What does that equate to in square meters? And that's a question to the applicant.
To the square meter is 10.46 square meter.
Thank you.
No problem.
Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, do we have any ability to like put up a red line version of this? Though I see that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, not at this time. I mean, variance numbers 6, 10, and 11 are being removed.
Removed, yes, I got that.
And variance number 12 is being amended to read 70% at 10.46 square meters.
Yes, okay, all right. All right, thank you for that clarification. All right, members.
I'm sorry, I see that the crossing variance number 7, that's not changed. So number 6, 10, and 11 are removed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It said 6, 10, and 11 are removed?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Members, yes, Nelly, please.
So with regards to variances, actually 7 and probably 1, you've mentioned it's the existing condition. Can you please confirm that?
But not so the numbers 7 and number 1, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so number 1 is the front yard setback. We have 3.83 meter instead of 4.1 meter, and the reason for it is that there is an existing front wall that we are keeping it. So there's a modification to that, but the front wall will be staying. And also for number 7, because of that front yard setback that we have, and then we're going to have the platform for the porch in front of that wall, but the requirement for the front yard setback is more than what we have as existing, so that's why it's triggering that and making it 1.56 meters, encroaching into the required front yard setback. So because of that existing front yard wall, we're getting these 2 variances.
Chair, I have a question.
Oh, yes, please.
Thanks to the applicant. Transportation put in some comments, and one is related to the width of the curb cut to reduce it to 2.7 meters. They're not talking about your driveway, but the curb cut. Is that existing, or are you willing to comply with that condition?
Yes, we actually revised the drawing to meet those comments. Okay. So we reduced that to 2.7 meters, and we actually added a note to the site plan that existing extra of existing curb cut to be filled and the grass area to be employed into that areas behind that curb cut.
That's great. Thanks.
Yes, please.
Just to clarify the driveway, is the driveway going to be like 2.7 or a maximum of 3.2 meters all the way from the curb to the garage door?
We actually changed it 2.7 meters from the curb to all the way to the garage.
All the way to the garage. Okay, thank you very much. It wasn't clear from your note to them, so thanks.
And sir, my notes are there's an urban forestry condition number 3. You're aware of that?
Sir.
Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Okay. Anything further? Okay. Members, any discussion? You wish to put forward a motion here? We've got a revised application. Yes.
Do we need to tie it to the site plans, or is that's already taken care of through the revised?
Okay.
I think it might make sense to just add it because the changes have been made, and I think they're positive. So
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask the agent.
All right. All right, committee is just discussing, we're thinking that we're adding a condition that what's to be constructed will be substantially in accordance with the revised site plan.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, is that okay with you? Oh, hi, sir, you there?
Oh, yes, I was muted. Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right, members, shall we move on this? Yes, Nelly, please.
Probably. I think the revised version looks much more palatable, and I can see the applicant made efforts to follow I think the transportation department and zoning bylaws requirements. So it's commendable, and I think in the revised version it's a supportable application. So and I would move a motion to approve it with conditions. Obviously, we have forestry condition number 3, and as Mr. Reed mentioned, with tied to a plan. I think it's October 11th, but we have the revised plans. The transportation condition, yeah, but I'm not. I think transportation condition been cleared by by the revised plans. Okay,
Through you, Mr.
yeah,
Chair, it doesn't hurt to include those conditions.
Okay, yes, and the transportation condition, obviously. Thank you. Yes.
All right, is there a seconder for that motion to the right? Yes, yes, Mr. Reed. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Seconded? Yes, right. Go ahead. All in favor of that revised application with those? Yep. Fine, sir. That's that revised application is approved with those particular conditions. Thanks very much. Okay. Thanks, members. I just need a moment to myself catch up on my notes for a second. Okay. All right, moving next to 220 GEARY Avenue. Okay. This is the purpose of this planning application on GEARY Avenue. It is as follows: to permit a personal service shop use barber studio to be located on the second story of the existing two-story building. Committee has before it the following: a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, 3 photographs of the subject property, covering letter from Edward Lee as agent, and finally we have a staff report from community planning. All right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online, no registered speakers for this item. At this time, we'll unmute Edward Lee.
Fine. Just,
Edward, you've been unmuted.
Yes, good morning, committee. Edward Lee, agent for the owner.
Yes, thanks. And your municipal address, just for the record?
6 Argyle Street, Toronto.
All right, thank you. All right, if you want to make a very brief presentation, but I'll just say
yes.
this, thinking about you. Have you seen the city planning staff report?
Yes, unfortunately, it came over before the long weekend, and so I've only really been able to review it yesterday and today. And I haven't been able to get the owner's input on this. So my initial instinct was to request a deferral. And I tried to get that request in time for the start of this meeting, but the application technician said I could raise it before you at this time. This is a bit of a difficult situation for the owner because the tenant who's planning to occupy the second floor as a barber shop,
Right.
I don't believe could handle the extended timeline of having to wait for the deferral. Yet at the same time, this planning staff report makes it very clear their reasons for not supporting this use on the second floor. I do have my arguments. It's a little bit frustrating because I went before committee earlier this year for a wellness center at 211 GEARY, which in my view is also a personal service shop. It did not get flagged by planning staff as being contradicting official plan. Perhaps it's because there was a small ancillary cafe as part of that application. But there was no objection from planning staff, and that was approved, and it's under construction now. This proposal for a very modest barbershop, especially being on the second floor, I had no reasons to believe that planning staff would have any objections to this. I was also before committee for the joint addresses of 216 to 222, which includes 220. But that application was for eating establishments on the ground floor of all of the buildings. That was also approved subject to some conditions from planning staff, but they did not object to eating establishment uses for all of these buildings in this block. Had we known about this barbershop tenant, we would have probably packaged that together with the previous application and would have given me a chance to rebut planning staff's oppositions to this use on the second floor. But this being a standalone application for 220, specifically for a barbershop on top of a eating establishment, while it's not technically an ancillary use to the restaurant below, it is an ancillary use relative to the overall building. And going through the planning staff's justifications, their comments, they do mention that ancillary to some of these uses might be permitted, but they did not think that it was ancillary to any other use because it's a standalone second floor. And just one final point before my comments are over. They mentioned something on October 20th, so that's later this week. The provincial planning statement comes into effect and will allow for conversions or removals of employment areas to be considered at any point in time instead of only during a municipal comprehensive review. To go through the municipal comprehensive review and official plan amendment for a barbershop use seems like a big process for a small request. So in that view, I felt that a minor variance application and allowing committee members to weigh on this was appropriate. But if a deferral is the only way to buy myself time to consult with a planner and consult with the owner, that would be my request. But given staff report, planning staff's past approvals of a wellness center on GEARY, I find it a little bit surprising that inconsistency from planner to planner on their verdicts on these applications. And I understand planning staff is stretched, but receiving these planning staff reports at the 11th hour without any notice, usually planning staff do reach out to the applicant to give us a heads up that there is a recommendation for refusal, which usually allows me some time to consult and make a decision on whether to move forward or not. So unfortunately, for the barbershop tenant, deferral might be a nail in the coffin for him business-wise. But at the same time, for the sake of being able to put together a proper argument to justify why I disagree with planning staff's report, will take some time. So that's kind of my background. It's not a great position to be in, but if committee members can consider all of the facts I've presented, I'd be open to any recommendation on moving forward with the application or considering the request for deferral.
All right, thank you. Yes, it's a proposed modest use, but generally I see that the employment, it's core employment area, and I was just going to say sort of as a general matter or practice is that planners like to see that employment areas are sort of undisturbed from other kinds of uses. But anyway, having said that, you made just one remark, and maybe we could follow up on that. We've heard this morning actually about possible planning regulations coming out. Are you saying there's a planning statement that's essentially to be promulgated maybe at the end of this week or next week?
In the staff report.
I'm sorry?
Oh, yes, in the staff report,
okay.
In the second paragraph, it does mention on October 20th, 2024,
okay.
Provincial planning statement comes into effect that will allow conversions or removals of employment areas to be considered at any point in time. I don't fully understand what the provincial planning statement is,
okay.
But if that's an avenue that we could pursue, then that might be an option for us. But if it still requires minor variance for the use ultimately, or an official plan amendment to permit the barbershop, then there would still be a need to go through this hearing. Based on that, I would request a deferral. But if committee staff believe that this provincial planning statement is kind of an alternative route for us to get a barbershop use permitted in an employment area, if the minor variance is not required, that would be a different story.
Sorry, members, any comments? I'm sorry, I kind of jumped in there a bit. Yes, please.
I understand that the tenant is already lined up. Is it that correct?
Yes, and it's this second floor right now is all occupied by studio like work studios, and the only reason that a barber shop requires a minor variance approval is because there's a business license that's specific for barbershops, and he would not be able to get his business license without a zoning compliance letter.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Can you give a brief explanation of why a barbershop instead of like one of the allowed uses? Was it difficult to find people a tenant that would use one of the already permitted uses, or what's the reasoning for that?
So the owner of the building owns several properties on GEARY, and he's very committed. He's been very involved in all of the GEARY studies, planning studies. He was instrumental in helping, develop the changes to the bylaw, which loosened some of the rules for restaurants and other uses. I believe he knows best, like the types of tenants that are in demand for this area. And, at the end of the day, like the term core employment area in which they are located, I do believe that this use is specifically to serve the GEARY community. There are obviously no other barbershops permitted, this not being a use that's generally permitted. He's had, different artists and people working in the work studios upstairs. And, for a barber to come in didn't involve a lot of interior renovations to set it up for cutting hair. And it's strictly because of the licensing issue that we're before you for a minor variance for the use. Second floors are not easy to rent out. I've seen in all the different areas around the city on Ossington, Dundas, and GEARY as well. Second floors are not as common. Tattoo shops, barber shops are quite commonly occupying second floors in other streets. But this, being an employment area, I obviously know now that there's objections from city planning on opening the door to these types of uses. I do believe that because it's associated with an eating establishment on the ground floor, not directly business-wise, but the intent is to bring people in the area to these buildings, to use the restaurants, to use the personal service shops. So for that reason, I believe the owners felt that it was the right tenant to be able to, diversify.
At the moment, it's used for artist studios. Why not just keep that, which is allowed?
Keep it as an artist studio. I mean, the tenant has left, and the owner was approached by a barber tenant to use the space, and it's essentially if there's a demand in the area for it. I know the owner is very proactive in trying to, help develop the neighborhood to provide all the services that are required. I mean, the staff report mentions, courier services, banks, and coffee shops as being uses that are permitted in the area. These are obviously, required for any neighborhood, but I do believe that, a wellness center, which was previously approved earlier this year on GEARY, and barber shops are essential facilities as well. They may not fit into the list of permitted uses for an employment zone, but for a neighborhood, I do believe that they are essential. And to allow for restaurants and other types of uses that were previously not permitted on GEARY, to allow those to be allowed now, but not allow other supporting uses like barbershops, seems a little bit contradictory in my view.
If we were to defer, do you think that you could work with city planning to work out a solution?
Based on their comments, they made it very clear that they don't believe that a minor variance is an appropriate tool to approve this use. I would just like to have a conversation with planning staff and maybe, refer to the past wellness center that they approved without comment. Same time, if committee staff understand some of the arguments which I've tried to present, I'd be open to taking our chances with the hearing. It's difficult because I haven't heard back from the owner, and this is where I wouldn't want to make a decision on behalf of the tenant who may not actually want to pursue this minor variance if it means having to defer opening his business till the end of the year.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking, do you want to consider deferral so that, I think you said in your initial remarks, this particular report came to you kind of late in the day.
No, it came last week, but I took an extended long weekend and only looked on the AIC yesterday.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Members, yes, Nelly, please.
You mentioned that, deferring that, case might be a nail in the coffin of the business. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, just that I haven't been able to speak to the tenant, the barbershop tenant, and he's under an agreement with the owner that once the minor variance use is approved, then he can actually get his building permits and move forward. So to have to tell him that we won't get the minor variance verdict until probably December at this point, he may not decide to move forward with the space.
Members, anything else? No, okay. All right, thank you, sir. Just ask you to stand by, and there are no other speakers here. So, discussion? Yes, let's go down.
I sort of know this area, and it's pretty eclectic.
I see.
It's a pretty eclectic area. And I do understand planning's commentary because they're trying to adhere to what's in the official plan.
Right.
But I actually don't, I think we should approve this application. I think it's a minor use, it's kind of in keeping, it's a modest improvement to the area with a new tenant barber shop. It's very much in keeping with what's happening, a very eclectic mix of service and light industry in the area. And I don't see, if it seems like previous city staff and committee opinions in the past have allowed this type of use. So with that, I think we should approve the application, not delay the applicant any longer. So that's my opinion.
Thanks, Sri. Yeah.
I actually kind of changed my mind on this. At first, I was somewhat sympathetic, but and I'm still somewhat sympathetic. I understand the challenges, but this is also a well-known studio area with a lot of artist studios, and I think that one of the reasons the planning is worried about this is because they actually want to maintain that kind of use. Now, I totally understand that artists are not going to pay as big a rent as a barbershop, but I have no doubt that if you offered a reasonable rent that you could find an artist who wanted to take over the space. There's a lot of artists in this area. They have an art crawl every year. And that was, that's what was the uses allowed when the area was purchased. So I would go more for a deferral so that the owner and the city can work out a solution. Which maybe the city is like, why don't you rent it out to another artist, which is apparently what the previous use was. Or maybe the owner will be able to make an argument that that's not possible anymore. But I think that needs to be worked out. I think that there isn't a lot of kind of creator space in the city, and this is one of the ones that left. And it's very much the character of GEARY to have these kinds of creative outlets. So I would hope that, I understand that this could cause problems in terms of the immediate tenant. But I think that there's a longer term issue here that probably needs to be resolved. And maybe the city will decide that, you know, this is the right thing to go ahead, but I think it needs to be worked out. I wouldn't want to kind of launch into this at the moment. So I would prefer a deferral at this point.
Members? Yes, Mr. Reid? Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I think this is hard. I remember the wellness studio that got approved recently, and I voted in favor of that. And one of the reasons I did is because it's on the north side, so it's not abutting the tracks. And I think that that's slightly different in terms of the impacts to neighborhoods and having a lighter than industrial use being on the north side. There has been a significant amount of planning work in the neighborhood, the GEARY work study, and I think, and the concern is that the employment side is being kind of hollowed out. It is much more livable now, and it's a much more kind of complete community than it used to be. But I think the concern is what happens next. I do think that this is supportable, probably. But I think the only way I would support it would be limiting it to the second story. And that, in my head, would then go to kind of preserve the primacy of the intended use. I think that's the only way I could support it.
I think apparently you can also limit the time. We could do a term if we wanted to as well.
Yeah, a term as well, perhaps. I think that. Just to staff, can we limit the use to a certain portion of the building and not the property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, the proposal is to allow for this use on the second level. And so you can do that, as well as for a term of anywhere from 2 to 5 years.
Okay, thanks.
Essentially a temporary use then, eh? Temporary use bylaw.
Well, they would be permitted, yeah, temporarily for whatever the term is that the committee would approve at. So if it's 2 years, then in 2 years' time, they would have to come back with a new application to committee.
Mr. Gogad, you want to put forward a motion on that? Or you think you can?
Can we go back to the applicant, ask what the lease term that they're proposing for their tenant is?
Hi, is the applicant still there? The agent still there?
Still muted. Oh,
Hi, thank you.
hi, thank you for unmuting.
I don't know if you heard that
Yes.
question, but it was asked.
Yes, I did. I have the owner of the building now. We're just messaging while the hearing's ongoing.
Sure.
So I just asked him about the term. Typically, it's a 5-year term. I've done restaurants in the past where patios have been approved for 2-year terms. Obviously, more of a nuisance to neighbors. So a shorter term, I think, is fair in those types of applications. I just wanted to note to Mr. Reid's comments. Yeah. The owner of the buildings, all 3 of these buildings, is a huge proponent of the whole GEARY art crawl, and the actual barbershop space that we're proposing is actually intended to be shared by an artist and by a barbershop. Had I known that maintaining the artist's use is something that's desirable, I would have made that more clear in the drawings. But it's actually a very large space, so the front half is actually going to be occupied by an artist, and people can get their haircut as well in the same space. It's also why the floor plans have not been kind of delineated. It was still up in the air at the time of submitting this application. I don't know how the committee would be able to put that in words in their verdict should they decide to approve it with conditions. But maintaining the artist uses in this building is actually one of the biggest priorities of the owner of this building. So just wanted to add that as well. I haven't heard back on the term, but I think given that a use like this will not be a nuisance to the neighborhood because it's essentially a barbershop for maybe 5 people at most. I respectfully ask if a term is being considered that it may be tied in line with the tenant's term, which is typically 5 years.
I'd be willing to support it if there was some way to also incorporate the artist space. I don't know if there's some kind of condition we can put that would incorporate that.
The use.
But can we put a condition?
Through you, Mr. Chair, what is the size of the barber shop?
Hi, we're just the applicant in, the size of the barber shop in terms of what's the leasing space?
I'd say about half is the barber shop, and the other half is just an open studio space where any creative person can come and work.
Would you be able to give us a square meterage for the amount of the barber shop so that we can kind of incorporate that into the approval?
Yes, I can definitely do that.
That'd be helpful. That'd be good.
Just trying to see on the drawings, I must indicate the actual square footage of the second floor.
Like a half or something?
Yeah. So I could say that the overall GFA of the floor, is 146 square meters. And then I'm quite certain that where the stair is where the delineation would be for the barbershop. So pretty much everything north of where the stair is to the second floor would be the barbershop. So that would be limited to 65 square meters.
65 square meters? Okay.
Yeah. So you can see that, a good 100 square meters of the space.
The maximum of 65 square meters into the approval?
Yes, absolutely. So that would ensure that the remaining space could remain for artist space.
Okay, super. That's a great solution. Thank you.
All right, motion then?
I move that we approve this application with the condition that it has a maximum allowed use of the barbershop for 65 square meters, exclusive to the second floor, for a maximum term of 5 years.
Second of that, yes, Mr. Reed. All right. All in favor of that motion? And it's approved. Okay, sir, you have the approval for the barber shop. Good luck to that tenant. And it was helpful to hear more about what's happening on GEARY Avenue. I'm less acquainted with it myself. Okay. Moving to item 5, DeForest Road. Okay. All right, next item at 40 DeForest Road. Here's the purpose: to alter the existing 3-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear 3rd-story dormer and a rear 3rd-story rooftop terrace. Committee has a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have 5 photographs of trees on the property. We have a cover letter from Brad Tapson as agent. We have an earlier decision of Committee of Adjustment going back to, it looks like, 2002. There's a floor space index map from Brad Tapson as agent. There are terrace drawings also by that same agent, and a tree site plan from that agent. There's some support. There's one form letter in support signed by owners or occupants of 38 DeForest Road. That was received October 8th. Opposition. There's correspondence and opposition from Gary Norris at 97 Beresford Avenue. And there's correspondence and opposition from Nicholas Singh on behalf of the Swansea Area Ratepayers Association.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online as well as one registered speaker here in person. At this time, we'll unmute the agent.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Allison Boyes. I'm an architect representing Brad Tapson Design of 107 Hamilton Street in Toronto. I am here today to present our minor variance application for 40 DeForest Road. Firstly, I would like to clarify the FSI data, as there is some confusion, likely due to rounding differences. Our application is asking for minor variance approval to increase floor space index to 186.50 meters squared, which is 0.84 times the lot area. In June 2002, the Committee of Adjustment approved the FSI increase to 0.82 times the area of the lot, which works out to 181.78 meters squared. At the commencement of the current project in 2022, Brad Tapson measured the existing house and created an accurate set of as-built drawings. The existing area that Brad measured works out to be 183.90 meters squared, which would be an existing FSI of 0.83. Nonetheless, our application is asking for an FSI of 0.84, which is an increase of up to 4.72 meters squared. For clarity's sake, I will use a greater delta to explain our proposal. If you could please pull up the terrace drawings from our supporting material.
Just as that material goes up, I just wanted to hear if I heard that right. So there was an earlier decision of committee that raised the FSI already on this?
Yes, to 0.82.
Is that 2002 then, just looking at the notes?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, please, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. No worries. As you can see, our proposal is minor in nature. As our drawing indicates, all of the work is happening at the rear of the house. There will be no visible change apparent from the street, and there are no variances required for the rooftop terrace. We are simply asking for an increase that is entirely accommodated within the existing footprint of the mansard roof. The proposal reallocates some of the area from the existing bathroom and the unoccupied space within the existing roof. This area will be used to provide direct access to the terrace from a vestibule off the stairwell. We have added a new dormer to the existing roof at the rear to provide headroom and accommodate a sliding door. The addition is only adding 4.72 square meters, again, all within the existing roof footprint. If you could please pull up the FSI diagram from our file. Thank you. This is a diagram illustrating the context and scale of the neighboring properties. Brad created this diagram based on publicly available data, which includes the City of Toronto V2 map, as well as a visual inspection of the area. This diagram is to be used as a simple visual guide to show that the proposal is in fact keeping with the existing scale and context of the neighborhood. Unfortunately, we noticed there was a mistake in the color coding of the diagram that was not caught in time to replace based on the objection that we saw that wasn't received until yesterday. Brad has provided me with his calculations. And in fact, the legend is correct in terms of the math. It's just some of the homes are color coded in this red along DeForest rather than in the FSI of 0.6 to 0.84, which is the lighter orange color. We believe that our proposal is minor in nature and meets the City of Toronto's 4 zoning tests. One, our proposal is only an increase of up to 0.02 FSI, which represents a very small change, adding just 4.72 square meters to the home, which is a minimal alteration. 2, it is desirable and for the appropriate development or use of the land, the vestibule enhances the functionality and accessibility of the home, improving the living space without impacting the surrounding properties. 3, we maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The proposed change remains consistent with the character and scale of the existing properties and adheres to the zoning bylaw's overall goals. 4, we maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The proposal aligns with the official plan's vision for thoughtful and sustainable development within the community. We have received strong support from our neighbors, including a letter of support from the resident at 38 DeForest Road and verbal support from the neighbor at 95 Beresford Avenue. I want to thank you for considering our application, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, members. Any questions for the speaker? Nellie, just one question, miss.
Yes.
I have a question with regards to privacy. I understand that you are specifying wood privacy fence at the...
Yes.
Right, but I don't see any measurement. What's the height of the wood privacy fence that you are suggesting?
Brad has on his drawings that that were submitted to the committee that it's to comply with OBC. That was just a kind of placeholder note, but we're happy to provide as much privacy as possible. There's already mature trees and there's a garage. There's lots of means to provide privacy, but we are happy to provide the maximum height or increase the height here to accommodate as much privacy as possible.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions? No. All right. All right, I guess we could hear from the speaker that's on. Yes, okay. Hi, Mr. Singh, are you?
Good morning to the committee. Yes, Nicholas Singh, Swansea Area Ratepayers. Good morning. The application before us seeks a 0.84 FSI in a neighborhood that is zoned for 0.6. The applicant has directed your attention to the change from the previous approval to this request. This is a misdirection. The issue before the committee is should a 0.84 FSI be approved in the immediate context of the subject property, which is zoned 0.6. It's not a matter of how big the difference is between the last approval and the current application. So, as per the public notice, this application is subject to Section 45 of the Planning Act and the 4 tests, and the applicant must show that this application passes all of the 4 tests, and failing any one means the application cannot be considered for approval. The applicant submitted evidence in support of the application that focuses on examining the context in which the subject property is located. In this, keeping with the test for maintaining the intent and purpose, we agree that there is definitely a need for such evidence precisely.
Can I ask you just to speak a little louder? Sorry, could you speak a little louder, sir, on your marks? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we agree that there is need for this evidence, particularly in regards to the official plan and maintaining the intent and purpose of the official plan. So as detailed in our submission, the applicant did not provide evidence that follows the policies of the official plan and also provided data that is obviously incorrect. On screen, can I get from the SARA submission, please, the file titled 3 buildings? The agent did refer to an error in their documentation they provided, saying that there was a problem with the colors, but the error was based on their method for looking at these, which I understand from Mr. Tapson, that they looked up the lot size, they looked up what they could get for a footprint, and did a calculation. Well, the calculation, if you look at this slide here, shows a very small house beside 2 much larger ones, and it assigned them all an FSI of greater than 0.84. If you had gone through our submission, you see that there are other incidents there which really discredit the information that's provided. Yeah, if you have any further questions about our submission, I'm happy to go through it. So our evidence, could I get on screen then now the SARA submission, page 10 of our submission? And enlarge the part where it talks about the immediate context. So our evidence for the test of the official plan starts with the policies of the official plan, which says that the immediate context is the houses in the same block as the subject property that face the street and the houses opposite. From any map you choose, you can see that the number is 15 buildings. Of the 15 buildings, only 2 homes, or 13.33%, support the application. 13 homes, that's 86.66%, do not support the application. So these are the facts on the ground. This is not an area that is in transition or is eclectic. It is pretty clear what is on the ground. So as per the official plan, this application does not pass the requirement for being the most frequently occurring form of density in the context neighborhood and does not pass the test for maintaining the intent and purpose of the official plan. As per Section 45 of the Planning Act, which is on the committee's public notice, this application should not be approved. Privacy screens, which was mentioned, do increase mass of buildings for the neighbors because they're just like an extension of the wall, and they do little to help people outside of the screen to actually have privacy, because if you look around the screen, everything's available to you. So those are my comments, and thank you.
All right, thank you. Don't you think, say, it makes a difference that sort of the bulk that's being added is really at the rear, like a rear dormer and terrace, and that's, I would say, like less intrusive of the neighborhood?
Certainly if it's at the back, it can be. It just depends on the view of the neighbors and how they react to the screens being put in a larger building. It creates more shadow also.
Fair enough. All right, thank you. Any further questions? All right. All right, thanks very much, sir. If you'd stand down, and we'll hear from the applicant again.
Hi, the area and the maps that Brad did for that diagram was taken from the V2 maps, analyzing the property sizes that were listed there, as well as the footprint, and extrapolating that based on if the buildings are 1 story, 1.5, 2 story, and whatnot. So we feel that this is an accurate representation that gives you a general sense. This is not a specific detailed map that lists out what each FSI is. It's just to give you an idea of the character and the general intent of the neighborhood. That being said, we don't find that we're doing anything to alter the character and feel of the neighborhood. All of the work is happening within the existing footprint of the roof and at the rear, and there'll be no difference from the street, which is our plan. We'd like to do a minimal conscientious design that fits in with what we've got, and we think that our application is minor in nature.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the agent? No. All right, thanks very much, everyone. Committee, let's take us into ourselves for a discussion and/or motion. Yes, Nelly.
I think in general this application is supportable. My concern is the privacy. So if we are going to approve this application, I would impose a condition to tie it to rear and north elevation drawings and to specify the height of the fence to be at least 1.5 meters. And I'm bringing on that ground, I can move forward the motion.
All right, Jordan, I think that second part is it relates to privacy on that terrace. Is that, yeah. East and west. All right then, all in favor? Okay. All right. It is approved as stated. Yep. Tied to plans and the privacy fence or wall to be made. Okay. Let's get back here. All right, members, I'm thinking we'll deal with this next item, and then I think that we'll take a morning break after that. All right, item 6, 42 AVENAL Drive. Here's the purpose of the application. It's to construct a new 2-story detached dwelling unit with an integral garage, a covered front porch with stairs, a rear ground floor terrace, and an oversized driveway. The existing rear detached garage will be demolished. Here's what committee has: a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 8 photographs of trees, an arborist report from the private sector, presentation materials from Benmore Mizrahi as agent, revised site plan, a covering letter again from Mr. Mizrahi as agent, a revised presentation materials again from Mr. Mizrahi as agent. These are revised materials that were received October the 11th. Here are comments from agencies, etc. There are staff reports from urban forestry, tree protection, and also transportation services. In support, there are 3 form letters in support signed by the owners or occupants of 37, 44 Avenal Drive and 114 Ava Road. So that's a total of 3 form letters in support.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online.
All right. Any speakers at all? Any others?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did have one speaker on this. He's left, so I'm just going to double check to make sure
Sure.
that he's
Sure.
speaking. So we'll unmute the agent at this time.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and honorable committee members.
Hi, good morning, yes.
My name is Mrs. Lamore, Benmore Mizrahi of LB Mizrahi Architect at 321 Hidden Trail, North York, Ontario. I'm the architect and agent for the proposed dwelling at 42 Avenal Drive.
Right, okay, and just take a quick look. So there are seven variances requested, yes, all right. Right. All right. Members are advising me that there also have been some amendments, so we have 7 variances before us. Can you highlight what's changing, what you're asking for now?
Oh, no, the only amendment was for, to comply with transportation's comments regarding the width of the driveway from the property line to, in the city property. So it's basically, instead of the driveway going straight down to with a width of 3.73 meters, it is now 3.2 meters wide up to the property line. I'd like to apologize in advance for the coughing that may ensue as a result of the cold virus I've just contracted, so.
Yeah, sure. We have a question
Some
from
questions about the driveway. So you've only changed the driveway from the property line to the street, but not the driveway on the actual property, is that correct?
Correct.
So you still need that variance.
That's correct.
But you're aware that transportation wasn't just talking about the portion on the public way, it was also talking about the entire driveway?
No, it was only part, they actually wrote a letter that they are now in support. They're okay with the change because they were only speaking about from the property line to the roadway,
Okay, thank you.
to the curb cut.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at the supplementary.
Do we have that correspondence in our supplemental?
Just to the agent, do you have that? Do you have that communication?
It's on the AIC.
On the IC, okay. Okay, I can't call that up right at the moment.
Is that in our supplemental?
I'll just see if someone can call it.
Can we pull it up?
On the, okay, sure. And application information center, okay.
There it is, yes.
Okay, sorry. May I just read that out if, blow that back up?
Okay, thank you.
Hi, staff. Can you just blow that back up just a little more? Just read it. The applicant has replied to the comments previously provided in terms of the revised site plan. Transportation review, it does not have any objection to the revised site plan. Thank you. I'm good again. Okay, all right. We might make that any approval and subject to that revised site plan. All right. Members, any other questions of the agent here? No, seeing none. All right, just stand by. We'll see if the speaker.
Agree,
can
Mr.
contact-
Chair, no speakers for this item.
No speakers. All right. Members, in your hands. Yes, please, Peter.
Thanks, Chair. I think with that amendment to reflect transportation's comments, I think that this is a supportable application. The only thing I did have concerns about was the length variance being requested, but I think that's really a function of the curved frontage of the lot.
Right.
And I think what's being proposed is within, within the envelope of the kind of recent redevelopment of that area. The footprint does match up well with its adjacent neighbors, and I think it's a pretty sensitive, though large, redevelopment. So I support it. I'll move approval of the application, subject to urban forestry condition 2. I'll leave the transportation conditions in just in case there was something missed, but that's subject to transportation conditions, and I'd like to tie it to the amended site plan.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Okay, yes, Nellie, all right. All in favor of that motion and for approval, subject to those conditions? That is passed. All right, the approval has been given.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the committee can take a 10-minute break.
Sure, I think it'd be appropriate now. Yeah.
Please turn off your videos, microphones.
start video. Okay. Yeah, sorry, just going back into session. Members, moving on to item 7, the address is 203 to 209 Dundas Street West. Here's the purpose of this application. It's to construct a new 12-story mixed-use building with a total of 30 residential dwelling units and 2 non-residential commercial units on this lot. The property owner will be undergoing a site plan control application. Here's what committee has. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs of the subject property, covering letter from David McKay and Daniel Delatorre as agents, presentation materials from those same 2 persons. In terms of commenting agencies, etc., we have email correspondence from community planning. We have correspondence from transportation engineering. And finally, a staff report from the TTC.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online, no registered speakers for this item. At this time, we'll unmute the agent.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. David McKay, registered professional with registered professional planner with MHBC, representing the applicant. 7050 Western Road, Suite 230, Woodbridge, Ontario. The proposal before you today is to allow for the intensification of the subject land shown on the diagram before you. We've worked diligently with staff over the last number of months relative to the proposal. If staff want to bring up the presentation materials to create a unique building that it fits in with the surrounding context. As you can see, perhaps in this image, you can see that there is a large office building behind the project. There is the adjacent properties next to Center Street, which can redevelop in a similar built form. Should they wish to move forward with that, our client did reach out to that landowner at the request of staff to do a consolidated development, and they were not receptive at that point in time. The site, if we go to the next slide, is at just around the corner from University and Dundas. So it is a significantly intensified area today, and the building will fit in with that context. I don't want to go too far, sir, in terms of presentation, so I'll leave it in your hands. I do note that there is one question about number variance 4, if it's required or not.
Yes.
We included, that's dealing with the loading. We included it because the original zoning review that we received did include that requirement. But I note that staff have noted it is not required, but they have no concerns with whether the committee leaves it in and approves it. I'm in your hands on that one as well. Whether we just remove it or leave it in and just approve it as stated.
Is there some correspondence or an email about that, essentially saying that you don't have to worry about that type G loading space?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. One or the other. Okay.
And relative to the TTC comments, we do need to go through site plan control. So I'm happy to, those will be addressed as part of the site plan approval process and conditions of approval through that are issued by city staff as part of that process. So I have no concerns with their commentary either.
Would you be okay then with a condition essentially allowing for the TTC review? I hear you saying, it's going to be dealt with in site plan, but,
That's fine, sir.
It's here
Yes.
before us, and I think it'd be appropriate to add, okay?
I am perfectly comfortable with that.
Members, any questions for the applicant? We don't have any speakers, other speakers on this.
Sorry, through you,
Yes,
Mr. Chair. We did have one person that was offline and then back online. We're going to unmute them to see if they do want to speak to this application. And it's Edward Lee.
Edward, you've been unmuted.
Hello, Edward Lee speaking.
Hi, will you be speaking to this application?
No, I'm on the agenda for 660 Dundas Street West,
Okay,
which is item 11, I believe.
okay, thank you.
There's nothing further on this issue, yes?
No.
Members, do you want to take this in for some discussion? Yes, Mr. Reed, yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a really thoughtful and well thought out application. The materials did a really good job of explaining why each of the variances were appropriate. So I'm really happy to move to approve these variances with the TTC conditions.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Yes. Other Mr. Reed, second. All in favor then? All right. The approval's been given, sir. Approval's been given, subject to that TTC condition. So good luck with that project. Okay, let's get to number 8 here. Just need a few seconds here. All right, moving on to item 8, 286 Main Street. Is what the city has in terms of its purpose. It is to alter the development standards for a 27-story mixed-use building approved under site-specific zoning bylaw 266 for 21 and 265 for 21. That was done at the then named Land Planning Tribunal to permit non-residential uses other than office-based use on the ground floor. So, sorry, let me get that again. Then a 27-story mixed-use building, and it's to permit non-residential uses other than office space on the ground floor. Committee has the following: plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 5 photographs of the subject property, a covering letter from Anish Pandey as agent. There's a planning rationale submitted by Tyler Peck of WND Associates. There's a earlier decision of the Committee of Adjustment in 23 affecting the subject property. There's an arborist report prepared by Stanley Luke. There are presentation materials that we've been given from Anish Pandey as agent. The 2 site-specific bylaws that I mentioned, we have those here. Commenting agency, we had an advisory report from Metrolinx, but again, I see that just as advisory.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agents here in person, no registered speakers for this item.
All right, thank you. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Anish Pandey. I'm a representative of Tribute Danforth Limited, and I'm joined this morning by Tyler Peck, Senior Associate at WND Associates. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have on the application. We do have a presentation prepared if you wish us to walk you through the application. We're happy to go through the slides. Otherwise, we're here to answer any questions on the application.
I might ask for a short presentation, but maybe just prior to that, just ask about that 2023 Committee of Adjustment decision. Just fill us in about that.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So the initial bylaw was amended through a minor variance in April of 2023, and that minor variance was to reduce the minimum office requirement for this property from 1,400 square meters to 1,299 square meters. And that variance was to allow for a migration of that office space into the retail unit, which is also on the ground floor of this project. And so it was a direct migration of area from office to retail, which has allowed for that retail unit to be expanded and help facilitate tenancy.
All right, thank you. And so maybe you'll just, you can give a short presentation. It's just reading the variances just sort of very quickly. Non-residential was not to exceed 1,700 square meters. All right, that's some office. All right. Yeah, okay. If you wouldn't mind a concise presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as I previously mentioned, we did go through a first minor variance in April of 2023 to pursue that migration of space. And so since the approval of this variance, Tribute has engaged Colliers to handle the listing of this office space in hopes of finding a tenant. However, unfortunately, over the last 16 months, it's been extremely difficult to tenant office space, not only in this area, but citywide as a whole. The office space market has significantly changed since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in a decreased demand. So the expansion of uses on the ground floor would allow for other non-residential tenants to occupy the space and would allow this space to be more attractive for tenants who are not of office use, such as service or commercial retail. So far, we have broached this application with planning staff already, and we are still maintaining a minimum employment figure through the variance. While the variance is seeking an expansion to non-residential uses, it's still maintaining a minimum of 1,400 square meters. And so the objective of this variance is to help facilitate tenancy rather than vacancy. If you actually go back on the slides, I can just walk the members through the floor plans. I just need to zoom out a little bit. There we go. So as you can see here on the slide, this is the new conceptual ground floor plan, which you can see a demising of 4 non-residential units with a back of house service corridor. Again, this is conceptual, but through conversations with our architects, this was a very efficient way of demising this space. Now my colleague Tyler can speak on the planning aspects of this application.
I can run very quickly through some of the policy changes that have occurred since the time of the original application. If you go to the changing office landscape slide, there continue to be significant challenges to the nature of office employment. In this case, the supporting materials include an economic report by Tate Research, noting that there are challenges for office marketability. There are other opportunities for office locations near the site, and that permissions for flexible non-residential uses on the ground floor are supportable in this case. This is also further supported by City Planning's own work. Recently in July 2024, Planning and Housing Committee endorsed a report from staff regarding their ongoing office needs study, and policy directions in that report include a pause or reduction in any in-force office replacement policies, and also allowing the replacement of office space with other non-residential uses, which is directly in line with Tribute's proposal in this case. With respect to the 4 tests, the proposal conforms to the official plan with respect to the mixed-use areas designation policies regarding both use and development criteria, as well as policies regarding economy, retail uses on the ground floor, and there are no in-force office replacement policies applicable to this site. Also, since the time of the original proposal, the Main Street Planning Study was adopted, and this site is within what's known as Character Area C of Site and Area Specific Policy 577, and the proposed use of the ground floor for flexible and active non-residential uses also implements this more contemporary policy direction for this area. There are no proposed changes to the massing of the site, and in light of this review, we recommend the committee approve this variance to allow for those flexible non-residential uses permitted in the CR zone on the ground floor without any adverse land use impacts, which is desirable for the appropriate use of this site. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Members, any questions for the speakers? No. Oh, yes, one from Nellie, please.
I'm curious if you were approached by any other non-office potential tenants for the space?
So far, we have not. Colliers has been handling the listing for this office space, and it has been available for the last 16 months. And to be honest, there's been little to no engagement in that listing so far. And so we're hopeful that with this variance, by allowing for non-residential uses in the space, it will make this listing more attractive to more service commercial tenants, which is our our vision for this space, and that'll help achieve tenancy rather than vacancy.
I take it that sort of post-COVID, we haven't had the kind of office uptake that persons would like to see downtown.
That's correct. And I would flag for the committee that this variance does not preclude office or medical office use on the ground floor. It simply is allowing for additional flexible non-residential uses should tenancy become available.
Thanks. Yes, fair question. Yeah.
Is this square footage owned and operated by the condo corporation, or is it a separate ownership?
It is freehold space, so it is our intention to sell it. It's governed by a shared facility agreement, and so there is that aspect to it, but it is freehold. So.
Okay.
Members, do you wish to put forward a motion with respect to this? Yes, all right, Mr. Reid. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to, while I understand the original desire to replace the office space that was there before, and definitely it would be desirable if there was more office space outside of the core, I think they made a very good case that there is already plenty of office space in this area that is not being taken up, and that it's clearly not being taken up as office space. So I think it makes a lot of sense to widen the possible non-residential uses. So I would move to approve these variances.
Seconder for that motion. I'm just going to check, see if there are any urban forestry. No.
No, there's no conditions.
All right, seconded. Thanks, Mr. Gauguin. All right, all in favor? Gentlemen, you have your approval of those variances. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're moving on in the agenda to number 9. Yes, so moving to number 9 on the agenda, and the property is at 16 Wells Hill Avenue. Here's the purpose: to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing an integral garage, a complete 3rd-story addition, a rear 3rd-story deck, sides is on the north, and rear 3-story additions, a partial front 1-story addition, a rear basement walkout, and a rear ground floor deck. Quite a bit going on there. Committee has before the following. We have a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a red-lined public notice that was received October 9th. We have revised site plans, floor plans, and elevations. We have a revised zoning notice received October 9th. We have 11 photographs of trees on the subject property and a tree site plan. We have a covering letter from Eileen Costello as agent. We have presentation materials from Andrew Everton as agent. Finally, in terms of comments and reports, we have a staff report staff report from Tree Protection and Plan Review, and also a further staff report with respect to urban forestry. All right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn the attention of the members to the screen, and I'm just going to ask the presenter. We did receive a late report from Councillor Matlow.
I see.
So that's presented on the screen. He is extending an offer to mediate a meeting between the applicant and their architect, local stakeholders, including the Casa Loma Residents Association and heritage staff from the City of Toronto. And then there is support from number 18 Wells Hill Avenue. We do have the agent here in person,
yes,
and we have 2 registered speakers online.
All right. Ms. Costello? Yes. So.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. All right. Have you seen the letter from Councillor Matlow?
I saw it this morning. Yes, I did. Thank you.
All right. Well, just in terms of what our Deputy Secretary Treasurer was saying, is there any appetite then for a meeting and discussion and seeing what might be done here? And I heard the word heritage is I guess, an issue here.
Heritage is not an issue here.
Okay.
And it's unfortunate, with respect to the counselor, that he sent a letter at the 11th hour and did not contact either my office or my client. Heritage staff have not commented on this application. We are not in a heritage conservation district.
Okay.
There are no designated or listed heritage properties in the vicinity of this project. This proposal is not on a property which is listed or in a heritage district, nor is it under a Part 4 listing or designation. There are no concerns from heritage staff. There are no concerns from planning staff. There are no concerns from anybody in the City of Toronto, other than this letter from the councillor, which was received at the 11th hour. Respectfully, we did have a meeting with representatives of the Residents Association.
Okay.
We reached out for that meeting to occur. Because of the long weekend, it unfortunately did not occur until yesterday. They communicated 2 specific concerns to us. One was in respect of the retention of trees. And what you will see from the material filed is that the 2 trees that are in the front yard of this home are not going to be injured or demolished. There is no need because the front wall of this building is not moving. There was, I think, a misunderstanding with respect to where the addition is going. There is 1 honey locust tree which is being removed. That is identified, I believe, as tree number 4 or 5, and that's in the rear of the property. And urban forestry staff have indicated that we'll have to file for a tree removal permit in the usual course. So that was the first concern which was stated to us. I do understand there's been some illegal tree removals in the neighborhood, and that was part of the concern which was raised by the association. We've shown them, and our tree plan demonstrates that no trees are being removed in the front yard. The second issue relates to what I understand to be a commentary, and I'm sure you'll hear from Mr. Levy on this, with respect to the original planning for the street, which shows quite a deep front yard setback on the properties adjacent to this property. So you will see from the map, if I'm not sure who's managing the screen, but perhaps we could just go back to the location map that was on the first page. You'll see immediately to the north of the subject property, the way in which all of the homes line up. They're quite far step back. And in fact, we have a front yard setback variance because we're not moving our home to make it to the midpoint of the 2. That setback is a result of the historical layout of this neighborhood originally, to create a very generous front yard setback and a treed setback on the properties immediately to the north. It's not the fact for our property, which is actually the bookend of that substantial front yard setback. We don't enjoy that setback, but I think what's critical for this committee to understand is we're not moving the house. So our front yard setback, and again, I believe this was a misunderstanding, our front yard setback is a fact of the existing condition of the property. It is not a change to the setback of the home.
So it's 4.12 meters.
It's what it is, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So respectfully, I'm not sure if the councillor is aware of those 2 changes. There's nothing to mediate here. The trees aren't being moved, and the house isn't being moved. There is a very small addition, which I'm prepared to go through in my submission to you, which I'm not sure whether or not the neighbors like it, but actually the piece that I think they have a concern with isn't a variance that's before this committee. So I don't mean to be dismissive, and I'm not. I just think this came quite late and unfortunately was ill-informed. And respectfully, I'd like to proceed then with my 5 minutes of my presentation.
All right, and just on relating to trees, and yes, there's a condition, being called for by urban forestry, and you're saying that's a rear tree you make application for, yes?
That's correct.
Yes, good. All right, thank you for this. Any questions initially, Ms. Costello? No? All right. Thank you. We'll ask you to stand by then. We have the speakers.
Mr. Chair, she was just responding to the questions. She still gets 5 minutes presentation.
Although the chair's clearly signaled that he's heard enough of me already. I'll try to make it quick, Mr. Chairman.
Got to watch those clear signals. Please, you can.
Thank you very
Take
much.
the time. Take the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning again through you to the members of the committee. So, Mr. Chairman, I did want to start with an understanding and acknowledgement that we have we've revised our variance list. We are no longer pursuing variance number 5, which related to the side yard setback. We've made that adjustment and staff have taken that off the list. I think I've spoken clearly to the first variance, which is the front yard setback, and I wondered if, through you, Madam Deputy Treasurer, if I could have the presentation just pulled up, and if we could go to illustration B as I just walk through the variances.
Through the chair, what document am I pulling up?
It would be what was filed by Mr. Everton, and it's the presentation.
Okay.
So if we could just go into illustration number B, which is the next page over. Right, and so what we attempted to do in blue was just highlight where those variances are for the committee. The front yard setback, I've identified. Where that's triggered is you'll see a small rectilinear box, and it's indicated as variance number 1. We're just filling in what's already a projection in that property, but we are not extending beyond the front wall of the house. And really what this entire project is a renovation of the existing home by adding on an addition in part of what is the driveway. And then that addition goes up 2 full floors along the side yard, and then there's a 3rd story at the rear. So there's really 3 built form variances that are in front of you. That small rectilinear piece in the front. You will also see a large rectangle at the back in blue. That is variance number 3, which extends the building depth from 17 meters to the permitted to a proposed 18.52 meters. And then you'll also see a dashed line where we've indicated variance number 2, and that's in respect of the rear wall exterior height. So we were just trying to show these to you on plan and identify them for you on plan. And if I could then ask my colleague to then move to illustration D, which is 2 more pages in. This is an elevation. What that shows you in elevation is the location of those 3 variances. So again, you'll see the rear addition, which is extending an additional 1.52 meters. And then you'll see the location of that rear wall and where the rear wall height is a maximum of 10 meters in the bylaw. And what we've done is extend that rear wall to 12.75. That allows us to have a full use of the 3rd floor for 2 important reasons. We're actually putting the mechanical of the house up on the 3rd floor because what we're using is some heat pumps and some other, and it's actually beneficial to put it up and to have gravity help us as opposed to having it traditionally in the basement and pumping everything up. And we're also regularizing the floor plan on that floor to allow us to have some extra bedrooms. I want to point out importantly that the distance of that 2nd floor, we are substantially removed from the actual rear wall of the house. We're 4.25 meters in. So we've really thought about our neighbors. And what you'll see on file is there is a letter of no objection from our immediate neighbor at number 18. And I can also advise the committee that our client has spoken to the residents at number 14 over the long weekend, and they similarly have no objection. And it's in part because we've taken care to actually not extend, although we have an incredibly generous and very deep lot here, we are maintaining a distance of more than 30 meters of open landscape space in the rear, and that's in large part to respect our neighbors. So that's in respect of both the exterior wall main height, which is variance number 2, and the building depth. Those additions result in a floor space index increase of 50 square meters. So we're at 0.6 above, which respectfully in our submission is modest, both numerically, but I think when you look at how we're projecting it, and what care has been taken with respect to the neighbors is appropriately addressed. If I could go back, I want to, and I always risk doing this, if I could go to illustration B, back to the site plan. I want to just point out, and if we could zoom in a little bit, what that shows you in a dashed red line just above where it says 16 Hills Avenue, you'll see the location of where we're filling in. So we're squaring off above that red dashed line where there was a through driveway into the rear yard. That's where the addition is going. It's going in the side yard and it's going up. We did have the traditional option in Toronto of pushing through into our rear yard. Our client specifically didn't want to do that. And it's important that in our in our submission, we've done that balance importantly to try and minimize intrusion into the rear yard amenity space for ourselves and for our neighbors. So I'm going to pause there, Mr. Chairman, and await any questions with respect to those variances, and then await what I anticipate from the speakers. Thank you, sir.
Much. Members, any questions for our speaker this morning on this issue? All right, seeing none. Fine, all right, we'll just ask you to just stand aside for a moment, Ms. Costello, and we'll hear from speakers.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll hear from the owner at 15 Wells Hill Avenue.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Laparco, and appreciate your time this morning. I'm not sure if anyone from the Casa Loma Residents Association will be, the executive will be joining or not. I know due to vacations and just timing, a number of the neighbors that are not supportive of this application were not able to register. I was able to do that, so I am speaking. I am aligned with Casa Loma Residents Association comments, as well as many of the neighbors. Disagree with the proposal being brought forward in application, strongly suggest further review. It's appreciated to see Josh Matlow is recommending the same thing. Good, valuable dialogue to understand and make sure that we do the right things for such an important historical area that has a lot of very defining heritage elements. I believe it was the lawyer representing the client that made some comments. I appreciate the passion. I'm not sure some of the statements were fully accurate. I believe there are a number of homes in the area that have been designated as heritage, the McLean House, the Nielsen House. I also would point out that the house right next door, number 18, went through a very thorough discussion process that prevented them from moving it forward as originally requested and destroying the bookend design of that very unique heritage area. And I believe they're subsequently very pleased that they maintained the distance and setback. But that house also, the precedent was set that through a good dialogue, there was a respect provided to the bookend and the whole area. So
there are 5 variances before us, and we understand the 5th one is being deleted. Do you want to address? Can you address those variances? The first one has to do with front yard setback, and we've heard an explanation about that in the existing house.
Yes, if I could, I think the second most important point is the trees that was referenced. Can I touch on that first and then deal with the variances? Yeah. Okay, so from a tree point of view, one tree has been clearly identified as being removed, a fairly large tree. And obviously it needs to go through the permitting process. The 2 trees in the front, I would respectfully question whether those will survive. We've seen throughout our neighborhood, many projects go ahead and ultimately those trees end up dying, whether it's through shading or whether it's through excavation. I believe what's referred to as the front wall is a small veranda, enclosed veranda addition to the front, 1 story. Likely not to have a basement. I'm not sure on that. That's a dialogue we'd like to know. Tree roots will be impacted because I think the design is to dig down. In the back, there's a number of large trees. The whole depth, I believe, from what I understood in looking at the diagrams, does not take into account a covered terrace, which is a fairly significant basement extension that again will likely disrupt the roots of a number of large trees in behind. So with all due respect, the comments on the trees, I think are very succinct and very summary. I think there's much more discussion that needs to be had, and therefore a recommendation for deferral and good dialogue on this front. Also as reference, recent experience, close by, it was pointed that a front tree, I think on Austin Terrace Crescent was going to be fine, and it was taken down by the builder and the architect. I assume would have figured this out up front, but a $250 fine for a very large tree that was taken out on a weekend. So obviously the neighborhood is extremely sensitive. The trees form part of the heritage design of the whole area, and that's why these homes are set back and accommodate this. As far as variances go, I'd like to just comment on the the setback. Yes, it is only 4 meters. That is different than the required setback. We understand that as part of the bookend structure. However, they're adding 2 additional stories to that structure. It changes the design entirely of the bookend structures. It does not match the other house on the bookend at all. So numbers and variances only tell some of the story. That's, again, another reason for good, valuable dialogue.
Okay, you've come to your 5-minute limit, so would you just please sum up? And
yeah, so the height is actually, again, is above variance number 2, and that's a significant increase of over 20% from what's allowed. Again, that's going to shade trees and interfere with the natural environment that has been preserved for many, many years. So respectfully request the deferral and further dialogue on this topic. And a number of our neighbors are very much in support of that dialogue.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, any questions for the speaker? See none? Okay, we will now hear from the representative of Casa Loma Residents Association, Robert Levy.
Sorry. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks. Perhaps just speak up slightly.
Yes, happy to speak up. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Robert Levy. I am the president of the Casa Loma Residents Association, an association that has been around for over a decade with a goal of balancing the interests and finding common ground, not only for property owners, but also the community and the many people who share the enjoyment of the Casa Loma area. Just a little bit of a background, which you may find interesting or not, but basically 16 Wells Hill, you've heard about the bookend, is a grouping of 8 houses that was designed by a recognized Toronto architect in the early 1920s called Herbert C. Roberts. And he was basically known for carefully planned urban environments that are respectful of context. And this is a uniquely grouping of homes. The lots are themselves exceptionally deep, as you can tell. But basically, the way they all face is this communal park, which has survived now over 100 years as a private public park with some of the most important stands of oak trees that were built in. Mr. Leparco mentioned what happened on 18 Wells Hill in 2016. It was proposed to be moved forward on the site because of the same setback bylaws that would have resulted in number 18 blocking half of number 16, because again, the rule is you have to be in between the 2 adjoining houses. And so we were successful in convincing the city and the owners ultimately to maintain the original setbacks as designed in this communal park, which they did, thus preserving. And this whole question for us is only minorly asking number 16 to do 2 things. One of them is respecting the setbacks, which have benefited all of the owners. Number 16 has benefited because number 18 would have blocked half of their house had their proposal gone ahead following the normal bylaws. But because of this unique bookend, the owner of number 18 moved it back to the original sightline, built their modern house, and protected not only the views of number 16 to the north, but preserved that communal park, which has existed for 100 years. The proposed new home basically is going to now break this tradition of maintaining the established setback facing the communal forest, and we believe can be easily changed to be a win-win situation. The Garden City movement was really a big movement in the 20th century. And this is one of the most incredible examples that continue to be benefited, but not only by the owners, but by the whole community, whether it's walking tours, etc. One thing is, contrary to what Ms. Costello led you to believe, we were the party that asked for a consultation with the architect. There was no consultation whatsoever. The architects know our organization well. They've been active in this area, and it was only because we requested a meeting, which finally happened yesterday, to get any information. So like Mr. Leparco says, there is need for further dialogue given the sensitivity of this. We have only two asks. One is the area of the new private carport and addition should be removed and face the communal park and maintain the setback that exists on the north side. I know that that's not a requested variance. However, the other variances are requested, and they are unique because of this bookend. They wouldn't need those variances if this wasn't benefiting from being the bookend of this grouping of 8 homes. So we are asking for one small part that basically faces the communal park to be removed or replaced and put onto perhaps on the west side where they are. Again, they face an exceptionally deep lot because this house is so far forward that there is a lot of room for them to replace that space and maintain the setback towards the communal park. The other one, Mr. Leparco did a really good job of explaining. The 2 trees on Wells Hills are incredibly important. And again, he had referenced it was actually on Linter's Court, where the same architect's client, and I'm not saying it was the architect at all, however, their client did remove that tree. So we believe the construction can be accommodated. Mr. Matlow has made a generous offer because there are a lot of other neighbors that do care about this. He has a track record of being able to mediate, and we think we can find common ground with a win-win situation that will actually make this project better for the owner, but also not create a precedent, which we have managed not to create, and have everyone benefit in a way that they don't appreciate. So I don't think the architect was fully aware, and Mr. Matlow is fully engaged and fully aware of the situation. And there is basically no misinformation on our part about the setbacks and the history, rather a track record of accomplishing mediation and a good solution for all.
Okay, thank you. That's so you're over time. Thank you. Staff, I wonder if we get that sort of subject the subject map back. I just wanted to actually ask the speaker more about the sort of called communal park, and I'm just trying to understand where that area is. And I take it these are in private lands. There's no public park in this area that I'm aware of. Sorry, last speaker, if I've got just...
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is a private park as part of the Garden City movement that allowed for the owners to enjoy their private property with their incredible lawns and 2 rows of trees, but also, again, all residents as you walk, because it's like you're walking in a park without impeding on anyone's private property, and they still have very large gardens. So this is just a unique, it's almost like the properties on Bayview as well. And that's why this was special. And this was specifically commented on the Heritage Conservation District study that was commissioned by the city in 2018 that we are unfortunately still waiting for it to be passed. But all of Wells Hill was to be fully designated under Part 4. Ms. Costello is quite right. Currently, it is not designated, but this is definitely identified as a unique public-private space, but it is private.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Sorry. Members, any further questions for the speaker? All right, seeing none. All right, Ms. Costello, we'll go back to you then for some rebuttal of what you've heard from the speakers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through you to the rest of the committee. There is no communal park. There are a series of front lawns, which are private property, which are manicured, which are vegetated, which are beautiful, as any of you who have walked along it will have seen, very mature trees, and they're beautiful. But it is respectfully not a communal park. There was a Heritage Conservation District study done in 2018. City Council and Toronto Preservation Board elected not to proceed with a Heritage Conservation District plan. I was not wrong when I said that there are no adjacent designated or listed heritage properties in the vicinity of this property. That is what I said. I was very careful in saying that. There are a number of individual properties which have been designated in the Casa Loma neighborhood. None of them are adjacent to this property, and that is why you see no comments from Heritage Preservation staff in respect of this matter. There are 2 trees on the front of this property. One of them is in the municipal right-of-way, so we can't touch it unless the city lets us. And the second, that one is not an oak, because Mr. Levy also talks about oaks extensively. It is a crabapple, and it is a redwood. The redwood, which is on this client's property, is on the immediate border, and you can see it numbered there, of the right-of-way and the front lawn. There's no excavation occurring anywhere near either of these trees. There's no excavation to allow for the 1 meter by 3 meter enclosure of the porch, which is shown to you in blue. Respectfully, there is no change to the front yard setback of this building. And I think the fact that I've just heard about 18 or 16 Wells Hill will give you a sense of why the community was concerned when that home, which is not here before you, proposed to pull into the front yard of that property, because that would have changed the lineup of the front yard of this of these homes. So I respectfully go back to what I said in the beginning. The front yard setback, which is before you, is minor. It is an architectural, it is a 1-story element. It is not a 2 or a 3-story element, which is changing in that corner. It's a 1-story element. With respect to the addition, which I also carefully took the committee through because I did want you to understand what was being proposed, that addition, which is happening in the former driveway, I think I'd submit to you, isn't that what we want to see? We want to see a building on an existing driveway and a side yard, as opposed to encroaching into a vegetated rear yard that does have mature trees. So on the one hand, they want us to protect the trees. On the other hand, Mr. Levy would like me to push my client's 3-story addition further into the rear yard where there is a mature tree canopy and where undoubtedly that would cause the removal or the injury of some trees. Our client has chosen to make this modest addition in a driveway and to do it in a 2-story form in the side yard and a 3-story in the rear. It is a modest addition resulting in 50 square meters above the FSI. I know this committee often looks at FSI as an indication of overdevelopment. I don't think that anything like that is happening here. And I think we've been very careful to maintain that addition, which is occurring 14 meters back from the front wall of this house. There is going to be no appreciable impact on the viewscape when you walk down Wells Hill. I would say to you, though, respectfully, that's the kind of objective I would see in a Heritage Conservation District plan when we're talking about what it's going to look like and what the character might be. And that's not an overlay that we have to consider here on behalf of the committee. So respectfully, I'd simply reiterate, there is no change to the front yard setback. There is no addition being proposed to injure the trees in the rear yard. A reference was made to height. The total building height is actually under the permitted zoning bylaw. We're not seeking a building height variance. That's a side wall, rear wall height variance, and I've demonstrated to you where that's occurring. And I think if that was going to be an issue, we would have heard from the immediately adjacent neighbors. My friend at number 15 Wells Hill is across the road and around the corner, and I doubt very much that the rear wall height is going to impact the shade and the shadow that he experiences whatsoever. And so respectfully, I'd ask the committee to consider the variances that are before it. I'd ask you to consider this property and not what occurred at 16 Wells Hill a number of years ago. And I think respectfully, you could take some comfort from the fact that there are no concerns addressed by any Heritage staff or community planning staff on file. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Members, any questions? Is this rebuttal, Ms. Costello? Yeah, yes. Nellie, please.
So with regards to the building plans, first, the 3rd floor, the setback. So is this area going to be a terrace? I'm not sure there is an indication. Or is it just the roof, flat roof?
Sorry, I muted myself through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to pull up because I want to be quite accurate. No, that is a terrace. What you're seeing in the stripe at the rear of the property, that is being shown as a terrace. Yes, it is. If you're at drawing, through you, Madam Secretary, A103 is the third floor plan. I believe through you, Mr. Chair, that's what the committee member was asking about. Third floor?
Yes.
Yeah.
With regards to the variance number 1, this little, like square that you feel in the ear, does it require excavation?
It does not.
And it's a one-story, and it's a one-story portion.
That's correct. And if you were to go to Plan A100, which is the basement plan, you'll specifically see the carve-out, and it's labeled as unexcavated. So that will be a void.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right. Thank you, Ms. Costello. We'll just take this into committee for
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
discussion and a decision.
I'm happy to start. I think this is a really well thought out application. I understand the concerns of the neighbors in regard to that established wall line, front wall line of the neighbors to the north, but I do think that this does come out and makes a nice transition to the properties to the south, and it's an existing condition. The variances that are being requested are quite minor. In the front, it's a tiny box that is not even excavated. And in the rear, it's only over 1 meter, and then the height is the height. But the height is really mitigated by the fact that it's stepped way back from the rear wall. So I think it's entirely supportable.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Reid?
I just want to say that I do understand that the neighbors can be concerned because obviously the house's appearance will change considerably and it will no longer have the same of heritage of impact or appearance as some of its neighbors. But at the same time, as the applicants point out, this is not actually heritage protected, and really these variances are very minor. So there's no real reason. I understand that the impact, of course, may be disruptive in terms of aesthetic appearances, but there's no fundamental reasons, I think, to oppose this.
All right, Mr. Reid, would you like to put forward a motion then?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. For the reasons I stated, I'd like to move approval of the application as amended. That's with variance 5 deleted, subject to urban forestry condition 2.
All right, seconded by Mr. Reid. All in favor then of this? All right, all right. It has passed. The variances have, the revised application has been approved with respect to those variances. Thank you very much.
Thanks to the committee.
Thank you. All right, continuing with the agenda, let's get to 10. 44 Rusholme Road. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2 1/2 semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear one-story addition with a basement, a rear deck, and a third-story dormer. Committee has before it the following: a copy of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs of trees of the subject property. There's a covering letter from Jonathan Hatch as agent, and there is some support. There are 5 form letters in support signed by owners or occupants of 42, 45, 48, 49 Rusholme Road, and also 303 Dovercourt Road. These were received earlier in October.
For you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online, no registered speakers for this item.
All right.
Not sure if the members need a presentation or they can just go straight into questions.
All right.
We'll unmute Jonathan Hatch at this time.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Jonathan Hatch here, 6 Bishop Street, Toronto, Ontario, M5R 1 and 2.
Yes, thanks. Okay. So there's just 2 variances. The first one is quite minor. The additions, floor space index is going up. Okay. Thanks. So we'll just ask you to stand by then, Jonathan. Members, any questions you want to put to the applicant? No. Okay. All right, if you wish, we can proceed with this matter in a motion. Yes, Mr. Leonard?
I love this part of the city. I love the housing stock and the multifamily and single-family home nature of it. I think this is a very minor application with request of the proposed modifications. And I think that I propose that we approve this with no forestry.
There's no forestry.
As is, unamended.
All right, is there a seconder for that motion then? Yes, Nellie, Ms. Volper. All right, all in favor? We have a second. The variances have been approved, sir. You have your approval. All right. 11. Just give me a moment as I get up to 11 here. All right, move to number 11, 660 Dundas Street West. It's west, 66 Dundas Street West. Here's the purpose: to convert the existing two-story detached dwelling into a non-residential building containing an eating establishment on the ground floor and storage area on the second story. Committee has before it the following: a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs of the subject property. In terms of commenting agents, we have email correspondence from the senior heritage planner of heritage preservation here in the city.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have Edward Lee online as agent, no registered speakers for this item.
Okay. Yes, I think Mr. Lee, we heard from him earlier. He said he had an interest in this in 660, didn't he? Yeah.
So he's speaking on behalf of the owners.
Yeah.
One variance, not sure if the members need a presentation. We'll unmute Edward Lee at this time.
Thank you, Edward Lee, here on behalf of the owners, municipal address 6 Argyle Street, Toronto.
I just have a quick question.
All right. Quick question from one of our members. Okay.
It seems very straightforward, but I mean, accessibility is important. So I was wondering if you could very briefly explain why it's not possible to put a ramp in this.
Yes, I've had to deal with this variance before in the past. If there was substantial work being done to the front of the property and there was actually enough space on private property, you can see from the front yard setback that it was not actually possible to fit the ramp that would be required. And this is strictly an interior fit out proposal. So if you zoom in, you can see that there's actually only a small portion of the front yard is private property. So we wouldn't have been able to create the required slope to elevate from grade.
So because the ramp couldn't be on the public property. So is that
Yes, we would have to apply for an encroachment agreement and go through transportation services. But in my experience, we'd be occupying the entire front yard, and I still don't believe that we'd be able to achieve the slope required.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the speaker? All right, I will take it in. All right. All right, panel. So we're in a CR zone. We have one variance before us. What's your thinking on this? Yes, thank you, Ms. Reed.
Go ahead. Okay. You do it.
Sure.
I can see, accessibility is a real concern, and I agree. But looking at the particular site conditions, I can see that the first level is very high, and technically, I think it's difficult to add ramps. So I think it's a straightforward case. I would support this application. No conditions, and that's it.
All right, then, fine. Is there a seconder for that motion, then, please? Yes. Yes, Mr. Gauguin, fine. All right, all in favor? It's a 660 Dundas, US. All right. The variance is approved, sir. Mr. Lee? Okay. Right, moving on our morning agenda to item 12, 128 Ellsworth Avenue. Let me just get its purpose. On Ellsworth, the purpose is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear two-story addition. Committee has the following: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a tree and inventory assessment report, a cover letter from Sean Galbraith as agent, and we have a staff report from Urban Forestry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn your attention to the screen. There was a very late support petition that was submitted, and we have signatures from 130, 126, 137, 132, 138, Ellsworth.
And these
Through you,
are all
Mr.
in
Chair.
support.
And this is all in support, yes. Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online, no registered speakers for this item. Not sure if the members need a presentation. We'll unmute Sean Galbraith.
Members, yes, certainly the second variance is very minor indeed, and all right, going up to 1, 6 times, okay.
Sean, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, committee's just thinking about whether a presentation is needed, and I don't think there's any questions or understanding? No, okay, thanks. Okay, we're just going to take it into ourselves and discuss, and we'll see where we can move on this. Yes.
Yeah, so when I first saw this, I was a little bit concerned. I know that the variance is very minor, but it's a very short lot and it extends quite a bit beyond the neighbors. But given the support of the neighbors, I think that this is entirely supportable. So, I mean, to talk to the neighbors are okay with it. So I think that, and you know, it's a short lot, but on the other hand, it's also a small house, and what they're asking for is really very modest. So I think that it's supportable, and I would move to approve it.
All right, and it has a urban forestry condition.
Oh yes, with urban forestry condition number 2. Thank you.
All right, is there a second for that approval, subject to that condition, Mr. Reed? Okay, all in favor then? All right, sir, the variances requested have been granted on Ellsworth Ave. Thank you. All right, item 13. TOPHAM, all right. All right, this is pertaining to a 19 Topham Road. Here's the purpose: to construct a new two-story detached dwelling with a front covered porch, a front integral garage, a rear ground floor deck, and a rear second-story balcony. The existing rear one-story ancillary building, which is a detached garage, will be demolished. Committee has before it the following communications: a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 3 photographs of trees on the subject property, and we have a staff report from Urban Forestry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agent online, 1 speaker in interest. I'd like to unmute this speaker just to see if they're going to be speaking in support or opposition. We do have 1 variance before us for floor space index. So at this time, we'll unmute John Parker.
Hi, Mr. Parker.
Through the chair, I'm having difficulties unmuting John Parker.
Mr. Parker, if you can hear us, there is some difficulty with perhaps a muted. Is it muted at your end? We're not able to hear you.
John, we're going to try to call you again.
This is the, oh my, such ridiculous. This is It is a very modest increase in FSI. That's right.
Hi, John. You've been unmuted.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I did not have any questions or objections to the application. I was dialed in just to observe the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's fine. Thank you. All right.
Then at this time, Mr. Chair, we'll unmute Eddie Perez, who is the agent.
The agent, yep.
Not sure the members need a presentation for this one.
I don't think that.
Chairman and committee members, my name is Eddie Perez. We're the designers and we're here on behalf of the owners. As you can see, it's a very modest application, one minor variance. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
You can see it's under construction. Can you just give a very brief understanding of how we are where we are today?
Yeah, we got permits for this project back in April, and we were going to do the garage 2 stories high, but then the owners felt that they needed more living space, so we added a floor on top of the garage. So now, but the footprint stayed exactly the same. We just got some more square feet inside, and that's where the variance clicked in.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions for the speaker? No. All right. Well, what's the panel's desire here? It is in numbers. It is a very modest increase in FSI. Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. The applicant's explanation, I think, is satisfactory to me. It's just in reallocation of interior space, and that increased GFA is going to have no negative impacts on the neighbors. So I move approval of the application, subject to urban forestry condition 1.
All right. Is there a seconder for that? Yes. Thanks, Mr. Reid. Seconds. All right. All in favor? Yes. All right, Eddie, sir, the minor variances have been approved for you on 19 Topham Road. Thank you. All right. 14. All right, moving on to 14. Let's get there, Heath Street. All right, at 50 Heath Street, here's the purpose of the application. It is to alter the existing 2-story ancillary building, a semi-detached garage in the rear yard, by constructing a rear partial second-story addition. The building will be converted into one garden suite containing an integral garage and habitable space on the first and second levels. So there will be a total of 2 residential dwelling units on this lot, 1 dwelling unit in the main house and 1 dwelling unit in the ancillary building. Committee has in front of it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 8 photographs of the subject property, covering a letter from David Smith, agent. Reference is also made to an earlier decision of Committee of Adjustment, appears to go back to 2001. And there is a letter in support, correspondence in support from Susanna Mandrick at 52 Heath Street East. I presume that's a neighbor.
For you, Mr. Chair, we do have David Smith on the line as agent, no registered speakers. At this time, we'll unmute David Smith.
Yes, all right. Just checking that. All right.
Mr. Chair, my name is David Smith.
Yes.
I'm here representing the homeowners at 50 Heath Street East. My address is 401 Craven Road here in Toronto.
All right, thank you. And, okay. We see that there are 3 variances requested. I'm just going to ask you to just give me a moment here. Okay. So it seems to be an issue mostly of angular plane being breached and some reduction in soft landscaping. Is that a fair summary of the request?
It's accurate with regards to the building. With regards to the soft landscaping, I think it's worth pointing out that although it is deficient and we're here seeking a variance, we were approved for a much smaller amount with the main building, and we're now looking to pretty much double that with proper soft landscaping instead of semi-permeable. It's a greater improvement over what we were previously approved.
All right, thank you, members. Yes, Nellie, question, go ahead.
A question about the, most of the backyard is like a hard paved surface, and could you just, elaborate on that a little bit and see why is it necessary?
Absolutely. So this is, I'd like to say it's a unique situation, but I'm sure it occurs all over the place. Because of the nature of the two attached garages or semi-detached garages, literally both neighbors have to back onto each other's properties and make several turns so that they can exit through the driveway facing the street, because the driveway is so narrow that nobody's comfortable backing down it. So what we've kept on our side is absolutely the minimal amount needed for the neighbor at 52 to be able to turn and navigate out of their garage. Besides that, and sort of a walkway off the back of the main building and a walkway to the existing garden suite that we're seeking, everything else has been converted to green space. So it's kind of the best case scenario that we can do while maintaining the needed parking and turning radiuses.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, just. All right, I'm sorry. Members, any questions, any discussion? No? All right. I think we can have a motion. Sorry?
Oh, yeah, are we going into committee?
We're into committee, yeah. Into committee here, yeah. Yeah.
I'm happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this was really a very creative and very modest way of adapting an existing condition to create a garden suite, which is of course something much desired in the city.
Yes.
I think it's actually great. They are increasing the soft landscaping. They're really finding the most modest ways possible to adjust this very interesting and unusual existing kind of back situation into a fully functional garden suite. So I enthusiastically move that we approve these variances.
Thanks. I'll just check for any conditions.
I don't think there's any conditions.
No, fair enough. All right. Thank you. Is there a second there for that motion? Yes. Question? Yeah.
Point out that normally I am very kind of concerned about, breaching of the 45-degree
yes,
angular plane, but this is a unique case, I think, where it is like some of the conditions are existing, but, north of that property there is the parking lot, so it's, I think, a unique case there. I would support that kind of design. So I'm seconding it.
Second that motion to approve. All right, all in favor then? All right, sir, the variances have been approved. Do you have your approval relative to Heath Street? Okay. All right. Yes, just moving on to item, sorry, 15, just get it, 15. All right. Okay, moving to item 15 on our agenda, and the address is 7 HALE Court. Here's the purpose. It's to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear second floor addition and a rear ground floor deck. The committee has before it a number of things. Copy of plan, a survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, 6 photographs of the subject property. We have agent email correspondence number 1 with the ravine and natural feature protection section of the city. We have further correspondence. We have further correspondence with the ravine section, and in a related way, we have agent email correspondence number 1 and 2 from TRCA. In addition, we have revised plans of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have presentation materials from Richard D. Oliveira as agent. We have supporting materials from that agent. Finally, in terms of comment agencies and things to us, we have a staff report from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection. We also have a report from TRCA, that's the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, of course, and a staff report from Urban Forestry. All right, let me just get to this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we also have some support letters on Hale Court and Stag Hill Drive.
Yes.
Just on the
thank
second
you.
page
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
We do have the agent online, no registered speakers for this item. At this time, we'll unmute the agent.
All right, and I'll just add what you've said. So yes, support letters from owners on Hale Court and also from Stag Hill Drive. Okay, sorry, get to that.
My name is Tasneem Batrusima. I'm the agent of the owners from
Just going to ask you to speak up quite a bit, please. Thank you, that's better.
Yes, yes. My name is Tasneem Batrusima. I'm the agent of the owners from Replacement Design. Our address is 16D 160, the Westway at Etobicoke. I'm happy to provide a presentation if it is required.
Probably it's not. I guess the real issue is, you know, the altered dwelling and its relationship to like stable top of bank. And just going to check on that. One question? All right, please.
Just a question about ravine and natural feature protection. I know that back in May they had some concerns, and the recent letter states that they don't have any conditions. So have you been in touch with them, and did you sort that out? Is that what happened?
Correct. That's right. We had several discussions with both TRCA and Ravine. The proposal was earlier a main story addition as well as second story, but we've revised it since then. Now it's just a second story addition, which is cantilevered and is set back from the, it doesn't impede on the stable top of bank.
Great, thanks.
Yes, as the chair again, I mean, it's interesting to see, you know, a request where you want to be 0 meters from the hazard line or a stable top of bank. But in my notes, TRCA is saying a permit is needed, certainly for development, but it's no objection to the minor variance application. So, okay, just leave it at that. Members, let's take this in, a single one. You've heard it. Somebody want to support it? Yep.
Thanks, Chair. I think the applicant has done their homework, because obviously the only question here is the natural kind of feature protection, and they've done their work with TRCA and Ravine and Natural Features. So I think that in that context, even though it looks like a large variance, the technical review bodies are satisfied, so I'm satisfied, and I move approval without condition.
Is
there a seconder for that motion to approve then?
So, because we had a condition, but just want to clarify, you know, by the protection and condition number 3. But is it clear to the revised plans? Are we sure?
Yeah,
Sorry, just having some difficulty hearing you. You're suggesting there might be a condition relative to what?
I think they're saying no condition in their most recent report.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we still have a motion on the floor to approve. All right, seconded by Mr. Reid. All right, all in favor? All right, approval has been given. You've got your variance relative to that structure. Good luck with it. And good that you've been working with TRCA and Ravines and Natural Protection here in the city. Okay, getting to 816. Next item on the agenda, I see some persons setting up here. Address 57-1 Dundas Street West and 115 Denison Avenue. Let me just get to that as to what we have on file here. So members, relative to 571 Dundas West and Denison Avenue, to alter the development standards, I see as approved under site-specific zoning bylaw 841-2020 for a new 15-story mixed-use building on Site 1, Phase 2A, which is currently under construction. By increasing the building height, there'll be a total of 188 residential dwelling units within this building. committee has the following: plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 5 photographs of the subject property, a covering letter from Vivian Nugent as agent, and there's reference to quite a number of earlier decisions of this Committee of Adjustment in 2014, 2018, it looks like, 2 in 2018, all right. A phasing diagram presented by Vivian Nugent as agent. There are presentation materials from her, and then finally references made to the site-specific bylaw 841-2020. All right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the agents here in person, no registered speakers for this item. Not sure if a presentation is needed.
All right, just taking a quick look at this, yeah. Oh, and a stair elevation, all right. I would ask just for a very concise presentation then, 2 variances, and just to explain those a little better. Yeah. I just ask you to speak up again, or is the little red buttons on?
Sorry, I'll start again. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Vivian Tran Nguyen. I'm the Assistant Development Manager at Delterra Inc., agent on behalf of the owners, Dundas Alexandra Park Residences Inc. The address for this application is 115 Denison Avenue, formerly 571 Dundas Street West. If I can get the next slide, please. And also, sorry, can staff pull up the latest received presentation, please?
So there's been a site-specific zoning on this, and you're, all right, you're asking for a minor variance, okay?
Thank you so much. Next slide, please. In June 2020, really quickly, TCHC selected Tridel as the successful development partner, forming Dundas Alexandra Park Residences, Inc. to revitalize and redevelop the Alexandra Park community as part of their larger revitalization project. The social housing project is bordered by Dundas Street West to the north, Cameron Street to the east, Bathurst Street to the west, and Queen Street West to the south. The revite's being delivered through a phased development approach and currently in the midst of nearing completion of Phase 2A, where the subject site is located within. Next slide, please. Site 1 Market, municipally known as 115 Denison Avenue, is situated on the corner of Dundas and Denison Avenue. Next slide, please. Site 1 secured conditional building permit in March of this year, achieved statement of approval in June, and is slated for completion in 2025. The proposal consists of a 14-story mixed-use building, and most importantly, features a unique wraparound mechanical penthouse design and residential amenities shared on the same level directly above the 14-story, as illustrated on the floor plan there. Site 1 is also connected via podium down to the underground parking garage to the adjacent TCHC Atkinson affordable rental building, separately known as Site 2, which is not part of the submission and also under separate ownership. Next slide, please. So the first requested variance is to slightly increase the top of roof height of the residential amenity space that is on the same level as the mechanical penthouse so that it can physically contain all the required mechanical equipment within the expanse of the ceiling spanning over the residential amenity. As noted within our submittals, the early design of Site 1 was not fully progressed and originally had a 2-tiered varied roof design, which narrowed at the top similar to a 2-tier cake. Through permit resubmissions and Toronto building reviews, the discipline consultant team discovered the 2-tier roof could not contain all the required building mechanics systems, such as life-saving equipment and drainage, and had to revise the roof to now level and flatten it out. I'm just going to quickly note that established grade is at 97.74 meters, so I will reference both measurements as listed in our zoning notice. The permitted height currently for the top of roof height for the residential amenity is 50 meters or a grading point of 147.74 meters, whereas the proposal requires 51.81 meters or a grading point of 149.55 meters. This puts the proposal in exceedance of 1.81 meters of the permitted height. This also triggered our second variance to a revision to the elevator core element to be slightly higher than the roof to facilitate drainage of the building so the proposal can be constructed in a functional manner. The permitted height currently for the mechanical elements such as the elevator core is currently no greater than 5 meters above the maximum permitted building height, which totals 51.5 meters or 149.24 grading point. Whereas the proposal requires 51.97 meters with a grading point of 149.71 meters, putting the proposal in exceedance of the allowable 5-meter extent by 0.47 meters. Slide, please. It's of our opinion that the proposal meets the 4 tests under Section 45 of the Planning Act and maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan through various means such as inclusion of building stepbacks, at-grade retail, facade treatment for enhancing pedestrian views, and now coupled with this revision to the leveled roof, the proposal with these variances contribute to make the development less imposing for the surrounding sky level, and also maintains the general intent and purpose of the applicable zoning bylaws. The additional height requested within both of the variances is to accommodate, again, for the functionality of the mechanical penthouse. There's no additional residential density being proposed with the requested variances, and as such, there's no impact to number of units, floor plate massing. And additionally, it also represents development desirable and appropriate for the use of the land, given that the maximum permitted height with a mechanical penthouse would be 53 meters, grading point 150.74 meters. These 2 variances requested remain consistent and synonymous with the bylaw, and also constitute minor variance in terms of impact upon the surrounding uses and properties. The additional heights, again, to the core elevator, to the elevator core, and also the residential amenity space would not result in any acceptable light, shadow, privacy, or view impacts. And finally, they go hand in hand subsequently to essentially allow for functionality and operation of Site 1. And then just to kind of close out, we've just provided some color-coded markups to better illustrate this, and also provided a building elevation to show context in relation to the full building.
Thank you. That was helpful. Members, any questions for the agent at all? All right, seeing none. All right, thank you very much. All right, I think there's no further speaker on this matter? No, thanks. Okay, we'll take it into committee for discussion. It's helpful to hear that, Maria. Yes, please, Mr. Duke.
This application for approval. I find the proposed variances, the 1.8 meter and the 0.47 meter are minor in nature. They do improve the overall quality of the building, both from an operational as well as from an amenity point of view. And I don't believe there's any conditions.
I see none. Is there a seconder then for that approval? Yes, Mr. Reed. All right, all in favor? All right. Thank you. Your minor variances have been approved.
Thank you, members of the committees, and also thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, moving on to 17, our last item on the morning agenda. Let's just get to that. All right, we're moving to item 17, 263 Forest Hill Road. Here's the purpose of the application. Is to construct a new 3-story detached dwelling unit with an integral garage on the upper basement level. Oh, I say accessed by a car lift. An indoor pool on the lower basement level, rear basement walkouts on the upper and lower basement levels, and a rear ground floor deck. Committee has the following: a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a committee of adjustment decision going back from 2013. We have an arborist report prepared by a private consultant. We have an erosion control plan by Mr. Mark Ellis of, Cineria Urban Forestry Services. We have a tree preservation plan by that same Mr. Ellis. We have a cover letter from Sean Galbraith as agent. What we received in terms of reports and emails, so we have a staff report from the Ravine and Natural Feature Protection section of the city. We have an advisory report from Metrolinx, and finally we have for the staff report again from Ravine and Natural Protection. There's opposition, correspondence and opposition from Dr. George Saz and Leslie Saz at 261 Forest Hill Road.
For you, Mr. Chair, we do have Sean Galbraith online. No registered speakers for this item. We'll unmute Sean.
Just give me a moment to hear. Yes.
Hello again.
Hi again, Mr. Galbraith. Yes. Okay, just get with you here. I ask you just to hold up a second here.
No problem.
There's no. There was a serious letter of concern from a neighbor, from this Dr. Saz, concerned, I think, mostly about the
tree?
increase in FSI and tree as well, yeah. Let me just take a look here. So you have 7 variances requested. All right, so this is a new build, and interesting, a lift for the car that's going to be built in. Yeah, okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, do the members require a presentation for this, or are there questions for the agent?
Anyone else requiring a presentation? No, I'll put you on hold. All right. All right, thanks, Mr. Galbraith. We'll just ask you to stand by then for the moment. The committee's going to take this into ourselves for discussion.
I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Great, thank you. All right, committee members, just amongst ourselves then. You know, as chair, so speaking for myself, I did have a concern about the increase in FSI. Are there any other issues or questions from members? Yes, Nellie, yes.
I can start.
Sure.
I'm looking at this application and the number of variances, but it's not only the number of variances, it's the, character of those variances. And in my view, especially with regards to height, we have, more than 4 meters increase above.
I'm just going to ask you to just speak a little louder.
Okay,
Sorry,
yeah, so
on height,
have,
yes.
With the height, like variance number 2, we have more than 4 meters, above what's allowed, and we have, depth and FSI. Yeah, look, to me, the FSI variance is very concerning, and in my view, overall, adding all the variances, it's not a minor, so I would not support this application.
Can I suggest that if we have serious concerns that we get a short presentation from the agent?
If you like, all right. Okay, we'll come out of the committee and ask for a very short presentation then from the agent addressing the 7 variances that are requested here.
I'd be happy to. If committee could put up my cover letter, there's some graphics in it that I think might help illustrate the proposal.
It's just taking some time to load. There
we go. Thank you. So on the first page, you can see the yellow and green. The yellow is the what is proposed, and green is the existing building. And so as you can see, the proposal largely reuses the footprint of the existing house and sort of squares it off a little bit at the back, and it squares it off a little bit at the front. The building depth variance, the length and depth variance, does not pertain to the above grade area. It pertains to the that sort of basement bump out. That is already existing and was approved at a previous Committee of Adjustment application. And later on in this document, there's a photograph of that existing rear bump out. What was the other concern? The floor space index.
Yeah.
This is this is proposed to be a 3-story house. That is the norm in this area. The emerging densities in this area are all in the 0.8 range, including right next door at 265 Forest Hill at 8.32. This is not out of scale with the scale of buildings that have been recently approved by the Committee of Adjustment. It's an area of big houses. The massing of the 3rd floor, if you could scroll down to page 7, there's another yellow and blue sort of graphic there. Oop. Actually, we can go back to that. I'll go up. Not that one, sorry. There we go. So this shows the footprint of the third floor relative to the second floor. The green area is the third floor. And as you can see, there are fairly notable setbacks on all sides. This very much helps control the massing and the impact of the massing relative to the neighboring properties. It doesn't just go, sort of straight up into a three-story box. And the third floor does not have any accessible balcony areas. So I don't believe that there are any, or I believe that any concerns of sort of privacy and overlook are well contained. There also aren't third floor windows that face the property at 261. They're only looking out towards the rear yard. I'm trying to think what the other concern was. Oh, the tree. So as the chair noted, there is an arborist report that has been submitted. That arborist has reviewed the tree. There's a large crack running down the middle of it, and it is, I believe that the tree is being held together by cables. And so it is not in good health already. The arborist recommends its removal regardless of any development activity on this site. I think those are the main issues, but if I've missed any, or if there's any you'd specifically like me to speak to, I'm happy to.
Yeah, the neighbor beside is also concerned about the side yard setback. It seems like it's slightly smaller than the current situation. Can you just speak to that, and also to, how typical that is in the neighborhood?
It is. It would be one of the smallest amount of variances sought for side yard setback in the neighborhood. So FSI is the most commonly sought variance in the area, and side yard setback is the second most common sought variance in the area, and they are almost all in sort of the 1.2 range. There were a few that were smaller, but 1.2, 1.22 seems to be sort of the new side yard setback for almost every project in the area.
How much closer is it to the neighbor than the current house?
Give me a second here. Let me just pull up my survey, and I will tell you that in a moment. If I have that. I might be able to, let me see if I have it, just so I can show it on a drawing that we've submitted already. If you look at page 5 of my cover letter, and we sort of zoom in on the next, there we go. If you zoom in there on the right side, that blue stripe. So the blue stripe is the amount of variance, and you can see the sort of dashed line. That is the footprint of the existing house. Yellow is where the existing house already exceeds the, or already would trigger a variance. There's a small side protrusion. So I think I don't have that exact number, but I think it's about a foot.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would take it back into committee then. Any further questions? Is someone prepared to put forward a motion?
I think in terms of just discussion,
Okay.
Nelly's expressed some concerns.
Yes, I have that too.
I take the applicant's point that there's a lot of houses in the area that are of a similar FSI. I think he's listed one of the neighbors on the other side and others nearby. The depth, which I agree is notable, is existing. Otherwise the plan seems to me, the third floor steps back a little bit. So to me, it seems pretty reasonable. I don't think that any of the side yard setback is, I mean, I think it makes, 1.2 is still a pretty reasonable setback. And the additional intrusion is fairly minor. So to me, it's not an unreasonable or atypical proposal for the neighborhood, and I would support it.
Anyone else? I think no. All right. Well, why doesn't the motion come forward? Nellie, do you want to put forward your motion? No.
I bring forward a motion to refuse this application on the grounds of the concerns that I've stated. And I think this application should be revised to not to cause such a cumulative effect, which is not Myra.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Okay, we don't seem to have one. Okay, that motion fails then. Any further motions? Yes.
One of the things that hasn't been talked about is the grade of the site. I think part of the massing also, when you look at it in plan and pure section, it does look quite massive over from the basement up to the top. But when you look at the natural grade and whatnot, I do think it is in context with the neighborhood. We can't comment on is 8.8 acceptable or not acceptable in relationship to neighborhood, but it does seem relatively in keeping with the scale of the neighborhood in general. So I would put a motion that we approve the motion with forestry condition 2.
Number 1, I think it is.
Condition 1? Yeah.
All right, is there a seconder? Yes, by Mr. Reed. All right, all in favor? Okay, that passes. All opposed? I guess we have 3-2, so it's approved on a 3-2 vote, sir. The variances are allowed subject to that urban forestry condition.
Through you, Mr. Chair, then that ends our morning session, and we will be back at 2 p.m. Thank you.
That's great that things are proceeding well on time. So
Members, please turn
stop our
off your
videos and
videos,
keep ourselves on
microphones.
mute. Yep.
Oh, so what time are we coming back?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, okay. Right on time. Nice. Okay. Let's see what I need. Oh yeah, because I want to do the TTC thing. So. Well, I don't know if we have to fill in form or something, or also a reminder of when we can start, because I know we got the email. It's like from this point on we can. So. Yeah, I know. I've got to do some going back. Well, I mean, it adds up, right? Like $7 or seven. What is it now? Yeah, practically almost $7 a day.